Good evening and welcome to Speakers Corner UK. I am hosting tonight. I'm able to sit at my desk and I have, of course, as always, my co-host from the Gin and Tonic Show and amazing commentator, Stop Spamming. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello, well, and thank you, and yourself.
Been crazy busy, and just for anybody who's going to watch this as a recording, not to worry, we will get to the Hamza's Den video. There's a bit more time need to be taken. I've been ridiculously busy, so I have taken a short amount of time out now for the next few hours. We'll stop spamming. We're going to critique a different video tonight, and this one is by a Muslim apologist called Mansur. For those who know Speakers Corner and the Dawah scene here in the UK, he should be quite familiar to you. And he'll be speaking to some atheist fellow. I'm not sure who that is, a young fellow. I've not seen him before. And this was from about 3 years ago. And it's called, the video is titled On Content Over Everything, which is more of a neutral channel. So that's not a Dawah channel. Were we designed, Mansur versus atheists? So
This is a request.
yes, so one of our viewers popped it in the comments and said, could we do this one? So I'm not sure if he will make it onto here, but if he does, great. If not, he can always watch it on the recording. So this is for Nim Grace, who sent us a message or posted a comment saying, hey, could you critique this video? And so we're going to do this. I haven't seen this in its entirety, so we'll go through it as we go through. And as I say, we will be critiquing the Hamza's Den 4-hour video, or at least some parts of that, in the hopefully very near future when I have a little bit of time to actually go through it. I've started on it, but it's just been ridiculously busy the last few days. So with that said, anything you want to add, or should we go straight into it?
Let's hit it.
All right. Let's go straight to the big boy. All right, here we go. Let's rock and roll.
You have organic matter, inorganic molecules, right? Carbon, hydrogen.
Okay, stop. No, come on. I mean, this is Mansur. He credits himself, and he says that he's an academic. He studied. I don't know if he's got a master or something. I don't know. But he says he's working in the medical industry or something, and now he says we have got organic molecules. What the fuck?
He's a pharmacist, as far as I know. He works in the pharmacy. And that's what I heard. I'm not sure that he's qualified in anything. He's just been around the Dawah scene for 20 years or something, I think.
Okay, just to set the record straight. A human body, I mean, everything alive is made of organic matter. Okay, so it's not that you have some molecules which are organic or something. No, these are normally carbohydrate sort of mixtures and arranged in certain ways, and this is what gives us the quality of being organic, something that can decay.
Yeah.
How did this come together to form life?
We still don't know that.
Okay.
Big shout out to Leon. I'm not sure if he still does, or we haven't seen him for ages, or at least I haven't been following it, so I don't know if he has, but he's always done some great work down there. So, and he's more neutral certainly on the religious front. So here we go.
What else?
They're still researching that.
So is it possible that nature, which has no consciousness, awareness, brain, yeah, could have done that? Which is non-existent. Nature by itself.
We don't know how. Yeah, it is possible.
Okay, well, nature's non-existent. I guess what he means by non-existent is there isn't a mind, but that would be begging the question. So you wouldn't want to say, well, there's no mind to do it. Can this come about without a mind? And obviously for us that don't believe in a God, the answer is yes. Do we have all the answers? No. But it's something called teleonomic design. I'm quite happy to use the word design as long as it has the word teleonomic in front. And that's simply, quote unquote, designed by natural processes. And there's many examples of this around the world, as opposed to teleological design, which is design from a mind of some kind, teleological meaning some sort of mind. So I'm quite happy to grant there is teleonomic design. But if I didn't say that word and didn't explain it, of course, theists that didn't know that would jump on and say, oh, you're claiming we are designed? Well, what I'm saying is that it's through natural processes. So, but then again, maybe I shouldn't use the word design because it's very much associated with the religious and with the teleological view. So, but I can always split it up for people who are listening here anyway.
possible.
No,
We don't know how.
Let's get rid of things that we could eliminate. Nature doesn't exist. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't have synapses. It doesn't have neurons. It doesn't have self-awareness. It doesn't have consciousness. Right? This nature could not have said, it couldn't have done that.
Not
We can eliminate
consciously,
that.
it could have just happened, though.
No. Just happen is not science. It's a belief.
Yeah, no,
We don't know how it happened.
Just happened is science. Just happened is science. This is the. Oh my God! How can anybody? If you observe the decay of an isotope, that is something that just happens. It doesn't need to have any trigger. It doesn't need to have a mind. It doesn't need to have anything. It just happens, and that is very scientific. I don't know what he's on about, really. I don't know what he's.
I think he's coming from the view that in his mind it's either impossible or so incredibly unlikely that life could come about from, quote, non-life. I mean, we hear this from theists all the time, and obviously the Muslims, parrot that back a lot as well. So from his point of view, it's either impossible or unlikely that life can come from non-life. And that's not necessarily the case. Do we know the answer yet? No. We don't know how life got started. But there's nothing in principle that prevents it. And if you want to go to probabilities, well, that's a very difficult thing to go down, because you can use numbers or probability factors to go your way or the other way. That's very difficult to pin down some sort of objective probability methodology that would show whether life is. But we are here, so either we came from your teleological God or we didn't, whatever the other alternatives are. But I don't see anything in principle that says that life can't, quote, come from non-life. It's a bonding of molecules. And I suppose, at least in the material phase, and then if the brain gives rise to consciousness, then obviously that's how consciousness would come about. But I think what theists do, now he won't do that. It's much more of a sophisticated argument for people that are really into that field, as far as I understand. But then they're arguing whether consciousness can, in fact, come about through material means. And that might be a more interesting and philosophical high-level discussion, but that's not something I think that Mansur will even know about or go towards. His view is just that, he sees it as unlikely or impossible. But then he'd have to make the argument for that.
But are you only talking about this A or bio or whatever, Genesis, the beginning of life at the moment? Is that all we're discussing?
Oh, well, I think, he's so at this stage, it's like how Mansur's view is, how can life come from non-life?
So this is what this is about. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Tatiana J, yes, absolutely. Okay, maybe I'm not the nicest and most civil person.
I think she's talking more about a Christian, so I've got the feeling. I don't think it's a Muslim.
Well, it's the existence of God.
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't put it on the gin and tonic, but we can always put it up here. So if you want to set something like that up, we're always interested in talking to people, absolutely. Now, speaking for Rob and myself, I think both of us are, so yeah.
Cool.
What happened?
Wait, please. When you say it just happened, I could say, God just did it.
Yes,
No, but we don't know. I'm saying we don't. Scientists are still researching what caused biogenesis.
But
it's an unknown thing.
let's understand why science is unable to. So you have no designer, and yet things come together, and then they started forming a very organized system. So again, from randomness.
No, I just said, no, it's not organized.
Well, yeah, and also not everything's random, right? The laws of physics operate in a certain way. They're not operating randomly. Otherwise, we wouldn't have, cause and effect, and science wouldn't be able to work if you didn't have some level of reliability with laws of physics. I suppose what he's meaning is that these processes themselves are random, rather than, the process of, say, gravity, for example, is random maybe, or something. I don't know. He's not clear here, but I think that's typical of Mansur. It's kind of much more of a low-level argument where there isn't clarity. Because I'd be asking, what do you mean? What's random? And then you'd have to explain. Maybe he'll tell us now.
We get order, precision. We were talking about precise engineering again. Precision engineering came
Well, it's
from
not
what?
engineering. It's just how evolution happens.
I'm not
You're
talking
trying to
about-
say there's an order. No,
see what you're
you're saying the whole system coming from the biogenesis is an unanswered question. It's
Why,
different than saying
why are
the
you
whole system is order.
uncomfortable to talk about biogenesis? You know why?
No, but you're taking that and extending it
I'm not
all the
sending
way
anywhere.
to say that it creates
I'm
such
not
an orderly.
I'm not sending it anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm
yes,
saying
you are. You're saying it's just having it created, and then we have a whole orderly system.
No.
Just it creating anything doesn't lead to
Absolutely
the
not.
orderly system.
Let me-
Evolution led to
Let
this
me tell
whole
you first.
system we have.
Evolution doesn't have a brain, or self-direction, or somewhere it's leading
Yeah.
to. Right. So it's a thing that doesn't exist. So let's not talk
Well,
about things.
I mean, it's not a physical thing. It's a like natural thing that goes on.
What is it?
Like natural mechanism.
No, a mechanism by itself doesn't exist. It doesn't have any consciousness of self-awareness.
Yes,
Yeah, but
it
mechanisms.
does. Yes.
Yeah, well, mechanisms work. Obviously, they don't need to be conscious to work, right? The law of gravity, physics, doesn't have consciousness, but it does work, right? Those are mechanisms. So I don't know what he's talking about here.
So what is this thing? Thing. It's not a thing, is it?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Well, see, it's
Well,
not a
you
physical
got a
thing.
watch, and you got a clock. My watch is working, yeah? I can tell the time.
Sorry, were you saying something?
No, I was just saying, no, please. Where's he going now? You've got a watch. Now what?
Oh, he's challenging Mansur now, I think.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it goes wrong and stop working. Where does the working go?
Where does what go?
The working of my watch.
Working. Explain what you mean by working.
My watch is working now. You don't know what that means?
Now I want you to explain
No,
it.
no. Do you know what that means when I say
I want
my-
you to explain it.
No, you tell me if you don't understand what that means.
I'll tell you what.
Yes.
So your watch,
It's working. Yes.
has a... No, I'll tell you what I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. So is it all these clocks there, and by motion the clocks turn one of the other and the other, and eventually on the dial itself you have a hand and a minute hand, second hand, minute hand, and so on, and they move because of the clocks moving.
So it's working.
No, because that movement
So
comes
it's
from...
working.
Allow me to explain. This movement comes from where?
It's because there is energy in it, and my clock is working. Do you agree my clock is working?
This movement comes from energy, and that
Yeah.
energy came from where?
Where does energy come from?
The energy in your watch.
There's energy
In your watch.
of course, it's following natural laws.
No.
Okay, I think this guy sort of came in from the side. So this is a slightly off tangent, but I'm guessing what the elderly fellow is trying to say is like, what happens when it stops working? And it's kind of an odd question. So I'm not sure that it's entirely related, or we'd have to kind of work it out. Maybe he's going like, well, it doesn't, it's like the working doesn't go anywhere, it just stops, for example. But I'm not sure how that's entirely relevant to the original conversation.
No, it's not really. No. If that's where he's going, I don't know.
Yeah, let's just see, because it doesn't last that long from what I remember.
Where
I don't
did
know
the
what is
energy in your watch come from?
What is unnatural about energy? Do you
me?
know what tell me something that is
Before
unnatural.
you go into something else, let's talk
Tell
about
me
your watch.
something that is unnatural. You don't want to answer my question about
No,
working.
listen.
Now you tell me something that is unnatural.
Listen,
Huh?
where did the
Tell
energy
me.
in your watch come from?
Energy exists.
Let's answer the question.
Comes from
Okay, let's come back to
movement.
you.
Comes from movement.
Right. So, let's answer this one. So when we talk about biogenesis or abiogenesis, you have organic or inorganic matter, and they form together a system which then replicates.
Which then evolves through evolution.
Right. Because it replicates, so it's a system. It's an engineered system. It's a precise system. Because
You
it's a
say
mechanism.
engineered implies.
But even if we
He
grant
can't
that,
get his
right?
head around other possibilities. He's incapable of imagining that there are other ways of doing this.
But even if we granted that it's a system, is Mansur making the argument that systems can't be natural?
Yes.
If he is, then what's the argument against that? What's the argument that a system, quote unquote, cannot be natural? Unless you're begging the question and you're starting from the position, well, anything has to come from God. But but that you'd have to demonstrate, number one, or show that a system, whatever that means, you'd have to be more specific, cannot be natural. In either case, I'd be asking him, what's your argument for that? Because you seem to be saying this and that, or one of these two, and then, please demonstrate that.
It implies that it has an engineer, like a designer. You're saying that you're already implying that. It just is a resulting system.
But there's precision in there.
It's the result. I wouldn't say what precision.
Really not?
What's precise?
First
What,
cell.
tell me what is precise?
Let me tell you what precise is. The first cell, what are the characteristics of the first cell that became alive? It needed to be alive, right? It needed to sustain its life. Yeah? How does it do that? How does it sustain its life?
Okay, so now we're trying to get into biology here, but again, we want to know from him what does he mean by precise? Because the Muslim apologists use these words a lot, but never actually define them. And obviously, if they're going to define it, it would have to be an agreeable definition for all of us to say, yep, okay, we accept that and move forward. Because if we don't, then we have to get agreement on what precise means. And at the moment now, they're going down the route of biology. So what about the cell? I think what he might try and get to is, hey, this couldn't have come about any other way except if God did it. In other words, created the cell because it's so, quote, precise. But what is that, as the young guy said, what does precise actually mean? Just that, there's these mechanisms that are going there? What prevents that from coming into existence in a natural form?
It needs energy external to itself because it is not self-contained energy-wise to perpetually continue its life. So it needs to take in food. How does it do that? It needs to take in food within itself. Once it does that by whatever mechanism, it needs to process this energy into usable form because it may have engulfed something. Then it needs to break it down to break it into ATP, the units of energy. Right. Then it needs to get rid of the waste products. How does it do that? It needs to have the machinery. It needs to have machineries which will do.
I'm not an expert in this, but I'm not sure that a single cell has all of the things that Mansur is talking about. In any case, you'd need to be like a biologist, certainly, bioengineer maybe, or whatever the case is for this sort of stuff. And he's not really qualified for this. So I don't know, Stops, if you know more about this, but he's assigning certain characteristics to a single cell organism that I'm not sure is the case. But I think the ultimate point is that he wants to get to this thing is so amazingly designed, it couldn't have come about naturally. And
exactly.
Where he's going with the precision.
Details, yeah. It's not the detail. He says it's precise and it's complex and therefore God. That's it.
Yeah, which isn't an argument on its own. You'd have to show that either it's improbable or impossible through a non-God, mechanism. And of course, he's not doing that.
It's the God of the gaps. We have no explanation for it using science so far. So just because we don't have an explanation, a natural explanation, does not mean we automatically have to go and assign it to a God.
Yeah, and of course, if you start to think about it, right, you've got this incredibly massive universe with 2 trillion galaxies, with 400 million stars, with however many planets around that, operating for about, let's just say the galaxies or the stars came into formation, whatever it was, a couple 100,000 years after the Big Bang. So you've got at least 13 billion years, let's just be conservative on that, where this can happen throughout the universe in an incredibly large way over, so many millions of places, or billions rather, or trillions, whatever, however many zeros. Once you start to do that, you go, well, okay, is it really that improbable that something could happen in at least one part of the entire universe, if not elsewhere in different ways? The answer is we just don't know. But he would have to make the argument that it's either improbable or impossible for that to occur.
And we used to do this in biology. We used to have single-cell organisms which we used to, go and observe under the microscope and shine with light and put different materials in there to see how they react, how they go towards sugar and how they go and move and things like that. So these are single-cell organisms, okay? So this is not something that he can just say. What he's doing is he's comparing complex single-cell organisms that we have today with the rather rudimentary versions that were around like I don't know how many, like 1 billion years ago.
Yeah, and you can always shortcut this and ask him, are you making the design argument? Are you making the teleological argument? What is it that you're trying to make here? And by the way, that only gets you, even if that were the case, to a deistic sort of God. And I want to kind of bypass this now with the Muslims because it's tedious. I don't find their arguments in any way convincing. They're not as sophisticated as the Christians anyway. But give me why, because if your book is true and everything in the book, in the Quran is true, then I would have to accept that that was the creator of the universe, the creator of all of us. So just show me that Allah's true. You don't have to go through the whole generic thing of, hey, did the universe have a beginning, blah, blah, blah. I just want to bypass that. That's become, at least at the moment for me, uninteresting. Show me from your books why your God is true. Bypass the other things, because you're not going to convince me. You're not good at this. The Christians are slightly better than you, and I don't find that more convincing than not anyway. So the chance of a Muslim doing it is, almost non-existent. So let's just get straight to Allah and bypass all of the, the boring bits we've heard thousands of times.
Give me your reasons why you believe this, and that's it.
Yeah. Why is Islam true and Muhammad the last messenger, right? And if all of that's true, then obviously we were designed, and all the rest that's in the book follows anyway, right? So just shortcut to there and show us that's true, right?
Where does the machinery come from?
Cell walls.
No, where does the machinery come from? It comes from what?
Cell walls.
It needs ribosomes,
yeah,
lysosomes, Golgi bodies, mitochondria. Each one,
The Golgi mechanism.
each one of them.
Did you say something there?
No, I'm just flabbergasted. It needs mitochondria. What the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on biology, so I just sidestep this and say, okay, it needs all these things. I'm granting it needs these. Well, we'd have to look it up, but I'm granting you what now, right? Let's get past
mitochondria
this.
is something that is generated. It's not something that you can't eat mitochondria. This is not. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, let's hopefully they get past this soon.
You need a DNA program.
Vacuoles too.
You need the DNA, RNA, tRNA. You need this to make proteins. You need protein to make DNA.
Telomerase as well.
To make these proteins, you need the DNA. To make DNA, you need proteins. So now tell me, from inorganic matter, how did this assemble?
Well, the original cell was not that complex.
The cell that became alive.
The original cell didn't have like a mitochondria.
What did it have?
And also,
Okay, what did it have?
we also have not discovered that. Science still hasn't discovered
Right.
that.
So what do we know the original cell may have?
We don't know what it may have.
So now tell me then, if it didn't have any of those things, then it resulted in those precision systems, mitochondria, the powerhouse,
Yeah.
Golgi bodies,
Yeah.
right, and so on. How did they come from where?
Vacuoles.
They come from the space from nowhere?
From evolution.
What is evolution, my friend?
There's that difference in natural selection. One cell had it and then it
See,
evolved, and
look,
then
look,
the next cell replicated.
that cell doesn't have anything. It was just amino acids that became what? Peptides, became polypeptides, then
That's
became
still
proteins.
unknown. That's all still unknown. Like scientific research doesn't know that stuff. Like,
And yet we say the system now at present, it just came by itself. By evolution. One with evolution is
Well, evolution is obviously the process after, single cell organisms. So abiogenesis or panspermia or whatever other theory is the case. But all of this is, speculation, as the young fellow said there anyway. We don't know the answer. What we'd have to say as atheists, though, depending on what sort of atheist you are, we are committed to the idea that it's non-teleological, i.e. that it didn't come from some sort of, God. That we'd be committed to. But further than that, we don't know. Right, but either make the argument that it must be the God, or that it's impossible or improbable that it could have come about any other way. And all you're doing now is sort of fluffing around here. We're not getting anywhere, to be honest. There's not a lot going on here at the moment.
No, and I'm actually quite open to a supernatural designer. I'm not excluding it at all. I don't see any evidence for this. I don't see any reason why I should believe the supernatural designer exists, rather than I don't know, attributing it to some natural design or natural whatever. I hate to use the word random here, but it could be random, that things happened which have only happened once in the universe. But the way that it looks at the moment is that life is actually quite common, that it's a necessity if you have a planet which is anywhere near of the so-called Goldilocks zone, that this automatically happens because all the materials in the universe, which are hydrogen, carbon and oxygen, these things, they are there in abundance. And whether you have the other materials necessary for that, the likelihood is quite high. So in my eyes, life is actually a necessity arising in I don't know, millions and millions and zillions of planets all around the universe. So the forms of life might be different. But I think life as such is not something so exclusive the way that these people make it out to be. And then they go and attribute everything to this godly designer because they have no other answer. As soon as there is another answer, they will have to go and update this and modify it, and then it doesn't work anymore. So I don't know what the hell this guy is trying to do. I don't know why Mansur is so, like attached to this idea that there has to be this thing. Why can't you just go, take a step back and say, look, at the moment we don't know. I have a model here which says it was a god. You have a model that says no god. Okay, who the hell cares? You can't go either way because neither has any level of evidence. So you can't do anything anyway.
Yeah, as the viewer is saying.
Exactly. This is this. Yeah,
Just put the proposition on the table and then ask why it's the case, right? Because this is grandstanding and it's beating around the bush. And at this point, and again, if you're new to this, and maybe the young fellow hasn't done it that often, etc. But there's a lot of waffle that goes on in Speaker's Corner, especially with most Muslims. And it's like, cut through that. What's your point, and why do you believe it's true? Boom. And then you cut through all of this sort of stuff.
Peptides. What the fuck is the purpose of that?
Yeah.
Something that doesn't make any sense
Well,
about what
yeah,
it is.
like it's the same thing like the Big Bang. We know what happened, from most of the way until now, but the first 300,000 years are still unknown.
But do you see how much of faith now is built in? The organic life, like a human being, which shows so much precision engineering.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is where now we get down to it to some degree, right? There's precision engineering. So now for me, I'm going to ask, what would we expect from a God? Is it your position, Mansur, that we are finely engineered, finely tuned, finely designed? And if I could show you that was not the case, would you agree that either your God didn't exist or he's a poor designer? Now we're getting down to it, right? Because for them, the Christians have what they think is a way out of this. The Muslims don't, though. So how is it? Because they have to, it seems to me, and I would say they have to. Then maybe there's Muslims that disagree, and you might have heard of the other arguments, but it seems to me at this point, they would be committed to that we are optimally designed or optimally precision engineered or whatever the case is. Now we just need to understand what does that mean, and all we need to find is a counterexample to refute that claim. And this is where I would be on that sort of thing. What do you mean by precision? And if I could show you that wasn't the case, or we could have been better designed or more precise, whatever that means, if we agree on that, would you agree that your claim has been refuted? Now we cut through all of this sort of stuff.
Do you agree or disagree?
Saying precision engineering implies that it was specifically designed rather than just
So
the result
are
of
there
evolution.
precision engineering within the human being?
No.
Right. So
Not
when you have
precision engineering, it's the result of
so
evolution.
when you have a cut and you bleed, what happens?
See this? Now we're going to go down a bit of a rabbit's hole here. He should definitely have asked, the young fella should have asked, what do you mean by precision engineering? Let's see if we can agree on what that means. Because if I don't, I'm not going to accept it. I might have a different definition. So we're not going to get off the ground until we understand what that means. What he's really meaning is, we're adapted to our environment. So when we get cut, we heal over time. But imagine precision, if you're talking about precision engineering, I can imagine Wolverine, far more precisely engineered than we are. If you're going to use that as an example of precision engineering, then we're poorly designed. Or we're poorly precision. The precision is poor. That's all you have to bring is another example where we can imagine it being better. And of course, if it's logically possible, then God could have done it. If he hasn't done it, why not? Either he's a poor designer or he didn't do the design himself, or some other option if you can think of one.
It's actually a clever
There's a clot that forms.
Yeah, because evolution has designed your body to
Wait.
clot your blood.
Is there precise precision engineering within the system?
Well, the term precision engineering implies design and a creator, which is not accurate.
Are you saying precision engineering means the creator? So when we
Yes.
make robots...
Would you say the tree is precision engineering?
Okay, let me give you an example. When we make robots to make other robots...
Something
Yeah, that was he was on the right track there with pointing to the tree, but Mansur didn't go with that, right? So you go, okay, is the tree precision engineered? How do you demonstrate something is not precision engineered? What would it take for you to accept something isn't? Because otherwise his position is everything's precision engineered, in which case, he's begging the question. So again, as I sometimes ask this, when I hear that it sounds like they're going to make the view that everything's precision engineered, then I'm going to ask them, what would it take? What's not precision engineered, or what would you accept as not being precisely engineered, so I can get a benchmark for it? And if they haven't got it, well, then I'm going to say, now you've got an unfalsifiable claim. And that's not interesting. It could be true, but I could just say, well, we're not precision engineered. Nothing's precisionally engineered. And my definition is the best that it could be, like God. That God's precisionally engineered by your standard. If we're not like that, then we're not precisionally engineered. And how do you falsify that? You'd have to show that we're God. Then you could falsify it, which they won't accept. So, it's this isn't helpful. And Mansur didn't want to go down that route.
The thing that has precision engineering is like a car
Mike, give me an
that is
example.
like has a creator.
Let me give you an example. When we make robots to make cars, the cars which was made by robots, can I say the car has precision engineering? Are you going to say no? It implies some kind of creator. But it's a robot
A car
that made
has
it.
a creator. Someone designed it. Like a car has a
Like
creator.
a robot.
Yes.
Right.
A
So you don't
robot
have a
can
problem
create
with
a
that.
car.
So you don't have a problem with that.
No.
Good. So do you have precision engineering in your system?
I wouldn't describe it like that.
Why not?
No.
Hi, Num, we're doing this for you. It's a bit tedious at the moment. They're sort of going around the houses. We could have cut to the chase a lot earlier than that. But we're doing it for you anyway, so glad to have you here with us at the moment. And they're talking about precision engineering, which hasn't been defined, which is why they're kind of going around their houses. You need to be clear when a Muslim apologist makes an utterance, get them to define it and see whether you agree with it before you go any further. Otherwise, you go down a minefield and you're talking past each other, or it's like a nebulous term that hasn't got agreement. And so it's like they're going to talk past each other here.
Because it's not precision engineering. It wasn't designed by someone.
So
It was
even though
engineered by
even
someone.
though it smells like design, tastes like design, I can see it like design, it barks like
It
design,
wasn't
but it's not
designed.
design.
You can trace back the human evolution from.
You just
to-
said you can't.
Not
Because you
to
don't
the
know.
original cell, but you can trace it back to like our early ancestors, like
Really?
Australopithecus and Neanderthals
Really?
and those other.
Really?
Yes,
How can we trace it back? Can you observe it?
in the fossil record.
Can you
Yes,
observe
I've been
it?
to museums and I've seen it. Yes.
Okay.
You can go.
So-
I'm sure they have a museum
Okay,
somewhere in
let's understand
London
that.
where they have the first they're monkeys on their feet and then they start walking taller eventually.
So when in the fossil records,
Like-
you see different species in different strata.
yeah.
The top species, was it caused by the bottom species?
Yes.
How did you make that inference?
What do you mean?
You just made
What do you mean the top?
jump
like,
of leap
like
of faith.
The original species
look,
at the top
let's-
leads to all the other ones.
Let's understand something.
Like all humans
We
and all
observe-
monkeys have a common ancestor at some point.
You're not.
Yeah, we're kind of going all over the show now. This is
Yeah.
off in left field, and it's because there wasn't clarity in the beginning. And so it's a good example, I guess, if we're listening to this and watching this, is get clarity with your interlocutor. What do they mean by X, and what would they accept as, refuting X? Then you've got a baseline to start with, and especially with the Muslims, right? I think that the challenge that we are precision engineered or perfectly designed or whatever the case is patently absurd. And like they say, they don't have the original sin argument to get out of that, which you can say, okay, after Adam and Eve, if they were perfect, and even that's a difficult argument for a Christian to make, then everybody was imperfect because of their sin, etc. But they don't have that way out. So either they've got to accept that everything is perfectly designed or optimally designed, or they don't, in which case you can't make this argument. But yeah, it's just going around the houses now, and so far we're not getting anything substantive that Stops and I can really get to.
You're missing my point. When we see a fossil record, let's say this is a record, right? 4 different stratas here. Complex, less complex, less complex, less complex.
Yeah.
The more complex thing, was this the result of this one at the bottom?
Well, they would all have been traced back though
No.
to one. It's not
We
necessarily.
observe-
It's not a result of the one below it because it's a different creature. We're not a result of
So
chimpanzees.
my
and we have a
question to
common
you-
ancestor with them.
My question is simple. The species or the fossils that we see, which are more complex than the one below it, was it because the ones below caused the species at the top? Is there any link?
No, you don't
That's my
understand
question.
evolution. There's no cause. My fuck, why is he such an idiot and he's misleading? If somebody doesn't pay attention to the words here that he's choosing, if somebody is not used to having apologists go and do this kind of misleading, you're going to get caught out. Because that is exactly what he's trying to do now. He's trying to get him to say, trying to get the gotcha moment. You see, but now this is the cause. No, it is not the cause. There is no cause. It is just a development which results in the progress within the adaptability into a specific environment, and that's it. Finished. There's no cause, or there's no goal, and there's no achievement. There's no reason. There's nothing like that at all.
Okay, well, I think you're really diluting how the fossil record works, because yes, like the original, we all have a common ancestor with like even cats. You can find a common ancestor that humans and cats both go back to.
You're now jumping again on faith. I'm simply asking.
That's not faith.
Let me demonstrate to you.
We have a common ancestor.
The Dawa guys love to throw out the word faith because we use it with them, and so they want to be on the same playing field, so they'll throw it out as well. Yeah, it's not my field, and the evolutionary biology, etc., is not my field, and I haven't got as much of an interest in it. But this idea of faith is like there's inferences you can draw, and I looked at one thing, which was the skull, right? The skull of different hominids going back in time, and you can see like a progression where the neck makes contact with the skull, and in primates further back in time, it was at the rear of the head, and you slowly see it as they find fossils. It slowly moves down from the rear of the head to sort of underneath the head, if you wish to call it that. And that you can infer that they were on all fours, because then you would have, like some of the hominids today, or even the chimps and stuff there, or some of the older ones at least, have it more towards the back of the head. So there's certain inferences you can draw, and it's entirely reasonable and rational, and they've it's a well researched field. So again, I'm not sure, and perhaps the young fellows not that clued up on it, but even Sabur or any of these other guys, they don't challenge evolution on the scientific facts. What they want to do is challenge it on philosophical grounds, or maybe they want to say, hey, there's another explanation for this. The problem with the other explanation is they don't generate any predictive capability. And so that's why, again, even if you had other options, if they don't have any prediction or don't have a strong predictive capability, then they're going to be put to one side. So we're not getting very far at the moment, it seems to me anyway.
All creatures, that's how it works.
That's faith.
That's not faith.
Let me demonstrate that to you then. Okay, so when I observe the data in the fossil record, what gives me the link that the top layer species came from the bottom layer? What's the evidence for it?
Because there's a clear progression.
No. Clear progression doesn't mean one caused the other, right? What is the link?
Yes, it does.
Excuse me?
Like you can take the human like from Australopithecus and then to Homo erectus and Homo whatever and Homo sapien, and there's a progression. And Australopithecus caused humans.
That's really
It
shows.
led to that.
That really shows the inferences that you're
It's
making.
not an inference. They have a right. It's like
Allow me to explain the data. So when I see something, if I see now, let's say.
This is kind of almost like a boring topic. I'm just going to do a comment here. Do you believe it's possible to put the Quran on trial through our legal system as a hate book? Well, it depends what you define as hate. I don't have a definition of hate, and any definition I think is a slippery slope and just subjective. But if we were to go with a Muslim version of hate, obviously not. But if we were to take some sort of other generalistic term of hate, then I think, yes, there's plenty of haters. I think Stops and I would agree in that book. But of course, that's something that would never really happen, unfortunately. But if people want to use hate, then yes, let's put the books on trial and see whether they still have hateful comments that are relevant today.
And I have a second problem because I don't know what a religion is.
Oh.
For me, it's just an organization.
Well, the organized belief or worldview or whatever, I guess there's proper definitions online, around a deity, worshipping a deity. I think worshipping a god or some sort of deity is implicit or intrinsic in religion. I know people
Islam
use the word
political.
religion to refer to things that aren't religious, to say, oh, look, it looks like this, or it has some of the characteristics of this, but traditionally religion would be the worship of some deity of some form.
But this is why I call Islam a political ideology based on the God belief, because it has some elements of a God, but only 20% or something are geared towards the so-called spiritual side. In other words, believing a God gives you some sort of access into heaven or something. So that is like a very small area. The rest is all about what you have to do here on earth.
Yeah, and again, if this is all a test and heaven is the ultimate, reward in that way, then it's almost like you'd be a Jain. Why not be a Jain here? Because that would be the ultimate test, wouldn't it? If you're being tested, be a Jain. Don't do harm to anybody else. If somebody does harm, well, you go with the non-harm principle, and you're going to be in heaven afterwards anyway. So, and it'll be a short life here. So why would you go out and, as you say, try to build up wealth and power and all the rest of it when, if heaven is your ultimate destination and this is all a test, then, that seems to me to be quite a strong test of human character, not to, invoke violence when it's used against you, and to sort of, just be a pacifist. It's not something I would encourage, but I mean, if that's the ultimate way, then that seems like an ultimate test. So you're right. There's a lot of things in there that's about this world and very little about the other world.
You can say Australopithecus, if that's how you're laying it out, did lead to humans. Yes, that
If I
is.
observe
Sorry, did you?
Thank you. It moved up. Somebody wrote this. I was too slow. Thank you.
Yep.
4 different layers and 4 different species, one above the other.
What kind of species? Like cats and dogs are different species?
Anything.
No,
Right.
no. You
What
have to
makes
go. It has to be in the progression. Evolution goes in order. So if you just compare
evolution
random
goes in
species,
order?
yes,
Why?
because it goes forward.
Yeah, I guess what he means is that there's continual
Yeah,
evolutionary pressure on organisms, and they adapt or continue to adapt to the environment. I guess that's what he means by that.
But you need to be careful with
Yeah.
what you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forward,
Wait, wait.
evolves.
Evolution goes forward. Why? Does it have
There's
direction?
natural variations
No, no,
in
let's-
animals, and in
let's-
those
let's-
characteristics are passed on.
Let's explain that a little bit more. Evolution doesn't have a brain to think forward, right? It doesn't say, I'm going to make more.
No, sometimes
Oh dear. Okay.
This
Nobody's
is-
claiming it is. I mean, call that a straw
It's
man
a-
if ever
yeah,
you
but what
did.
amazes me is how ignorant Mansur is. He always claims he knows so much about it, and now he's showing he's absolutely clueless when it comes to this.
I think that's the other thing, right? Who's suggesting that it has a brain? And to point out something that is trivially untrue is not helpful, and it doesn't elevate you as a speaker, right? You can say, well, hey, the fact that you believe in God means that you don't believe everything's natural. Well, yes, that's a trivial, obvious point. That's but it doesn't add anything to the conversation.
it does the wrong thing.
Let's understand your principle. So when you have complexities going to more complexities, what caused this more complexities? You said evolution has an order.
It's not an order. There's no order to it. It's
Oh, no,
natural
so, okay,
selection.
fine. So you retract that, no problem. So there is no order. It just happened. So when I see different species, one above the other, why?
I'm sorry, I just get angry when I hear this. I mean, come on, this is basic stuff. This is what you learn in school. I don't understand why he's so stupid, why he's so... I don't understand. No.
All right, let's carry on. See if we get anything of substance here.
Why do I make this inference that the top layer
Well,
species?
it depends on what species you're talking about and how it's laid out. If you're looking at the human Homo sapien, Homo erectus, Australopithecus, those did happen in order. That's,
Really?
Yes.
So we haven't found any human species which coexisted with so-called ancestors.
What? Well, I mean,
have.
Do
humans
we
and
not have-
Neanderthals.
Being made. Ah, fuck, I was
Yeah, that doesn't disprove that one species gave rise to the next one. But what would disprove it is if there were humans that coexisted with dinosaurs. That would throw evolution on its head. But if humans coexisted, or earlier humans coexisted with some other now extinct animal, that doesn't have any problem with the theory.
All existed at the same
Do we not
time.
have any Homo sapiens, like their footprints or their bones?
Not
or
during the
records?
same period as Australopithecus.
Do
There
we
are different
not-
time periods, and we know they're millions of years older.
So all these species that we're talking about, human or humanoids, from what do we infer? Do we have a full skeleton?
Yes.
All of them, right?
Mostly, I'm pretty sure.
Are
Yeah.
you sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah? And not just a small tooth?
No, Australopithecus.
Some of them have got small amounts. Some of them have got almost full skeletons. It depends
Exactly.
again.
That
But you can infer a lot, and that study, I can't remember the name of the study off the top of my head. That field, paleontology, is it? I excuse me for my ignorance on the term for it, but this is a scientific term, and it's something you can study, and it's
Yes.
a very complex, I guess, but also a very nuanced field. It's a bit like being a detective, right?
Yeah.
It's not paleontology, isn't it? That's the study of rocks,
It is paleontology.
Is it? No,
where
geology is the study of rocks.
combine-
Yeah, it's
where you
late. don't worry.
combine biology with the development and the environment in which they existed. So that you can, for example, see the kind of houses that they were building, and from the shape of the teeth you can see, and things like that. So, you know, there's like Neanderthals, we have Neanderthal genomes in our DNA. Not all of us, but most of us. So this is quite obviously something. And then now you go and you say, okay, well, what was the living environment in those days? And then you get the old, I forgot his name now, because Neanderthal is actually a village in the center of Europe. This is where they found some people. And you have Ötzi, for example, who was found up in the Alps. And you actually can see from the way that he was injured, what he was doing, what he was hunting, and so on. And so. This is paleontology, when they'd get different things together.
Yeah, I think I was talking about paleontology. I wasn't talking about morphology, but thanks.
So anyway,
Yes, Dave.
but the point of the matter is, it's no use, because what he's trying to go for Piltdown Man, okay? Because he's trying to find a reason to say, well, science is inaccurate just because they had one tooth and this turned out to be the tooth of a pig. They made entire drawings of this and blah, blah, blah. Yes, but the thing is, mistakes were being found or are being found by science. So it's never the case that if somebody makes a mistake, and you have asshole scientists, sure, you know, who want to be somebody and they create things, sure, but they're being found out. Never by a religious book, never. It's always science self-correcting.
Australopithecus Lucy, they have the oldest human ever.
So I would
They have
like
the
you to
full-
go.
they
I
have
would
the
like you
full
to go and
skeleton.
research and say every single humanoids or whatever the ancestors that are claiming to, or the common ancestors that we have found, and we've made them to be this intermediate species of apes or humans from the common ancestors, and tell me that you have actually, next time we meet, God willing, that yes, full human skeleton. Because I know some of them just from one tooth, just from one bone, and you make the whole, you even give a skin color. This is faith.
There's not faith. No, I've
Yes,
seen
it
it
is.
in museums. You can go into the museum in London and go see
The
it.
museum once showed the evolution of the horses. Horses, smaller, became bigger, and their hoofs. But this is just a forgery from 18th and 19th centuries. We should study this.
Yeah, all he's pointing out is that sometimes there were mistakes made. I don't know about you, Stops, but we're almost 15 minutes in, and I've hardly heard anything of substance here.
But the point I would like to make now, after all this time, what we are learning here, don't do this. Don't let yourself get involved into a detailed discussion on biology or cosmology or whatever. Always turn it around. Take control. You are the one who should be asking the questions. He is very passive. He's just trying to, be nice. But it doesn't help in the long run to be nice and just answer the questions and show that there are answers for the questions that they have.
There we go, morphology.
Okay,
So we'll carry
great.
on for another 5 minutes, see if we get anything here. Otherwise, we can go on to the other.
The point is, try and go and question. Okay, I've given you my answers now, and I know they're not complete. I know there are things that are not complete. What do you think? What is your explanation? How do
you
you
just say
go
God did it, right?
and find any kind of reasoning behind this? Turn
Yeah,
it around.
Well, he'll just say God did it, but then you can ask him the same questions as you point
Yes,
out. Well, how,
exactly.
what brings you to that idea apart from reading it in a book? All right, let's see if another 5 minutes. Otherwise, we can go to the other one, which is the brain one. Do you have a brain? That might be a bit more interesting.
In our even textbooks in biology, but it's just a forgery. They didn't let you know until people came to say, okay, you can't have that anymore now, you can't have it. Because why? These horses didn't exist in the fossil strata like this order. It was a scientific forgery done by the scientists to make people believe that's how evolution is.
Okay, so if that happened one time, so that
Not
doesn't.
at one time. You talk about human evolution. This evolution about human species and so on, it's another concocted picture. It's a concocted.
not.
Of course it is.
No, it's not. Wait, you're saying the theory of evolution is made up?
So let's go back to again, very beginning. So you disagree to say precision engineering. So when we have a system where blood clot forms with fibrin and fibrinogen, a mesh of clot forms to stop the blood from forming, I see myself very clearly.
Yeah.
There is engineering precision. You don't say that.
Okay, good. At this point now he's made a claim. The young fellow should be saying, okay, how do you demonstrate that? How do you falsify that? And if I could demonstrate that it could have been designed better than that, would you agree that that design is either poor or it's not designed? Now that he's made the claim, you've got to latch onto it here, and let's see what happens.
Say that because you know the implication for it.
I don't say it because I know it's a result of evolution.
No, it's not the
That if
result
I
of
cut myself, my blood knows to clot as a result of evolution. Because in the past, animals that didn't do that would die, and so that trait carried on. That's how it works. It's not engineered. Like, that's just how it works.
Yeah, so that's like in biogenesis, the very primer of your evolution when it started. So you have just matter became alive, live and kicking, and guess what it does? It has all these mechanisms to utilize food, break it down, get rid of the waste product, and replicate.
Okay, so this is an uncharitable reductionist view. It all just happened, and suddenly it all had of these. Obviously, it didn't have all of these functions and facilities at the very beginning. This happened over a complex chain of billions of years. So it's reductionist and disingenuous at the least to make it seem as if to the lay audience that suddenly we all popped into existence, fully formed, but through natural processes. Nobody's claiming that. So I think you've got to call that out when you hear things like that. And that happens a lot in Speaker's Corner anyway.
Yeah, he just justifies himself. And it's a pity.
Does he even know what he's eating or engulfing or taking in? He doesn't know what's food and what's poison. How does it then form these machineries? You say, oh, science doesn't know. But what we do know is this: it cannot be just.
Yeah.
Is it? It is. Just it's it.
Yeah,
It is
it
like
can.
that. No, it can't.
Yeah, it can.
You see, the leap,
Yeah, it can.
the leap of faith that you are taking on science.
Well, if you call it a leap of faith, if your view is that every field that's involved in evolutionary biology, all the fields that add to this sort of massive area, they're all taking it on faith. I'm sure they'd be interested here. Not only do all the philosophers of science, and in particular biology, as well as all the scientists, don't accept that. All right. So the fact that you're going to bring that up, I think, will be a surprise to everybody who's an expert in the field. But you can make that vacuous claim if you claim it's faith. But if you do that, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, because obviously inferences need to be drawn from certain things. Hey, we can infer X from Y. And if you're going to go, well, we can't do that in a field as widely studied as evolutionary biology and all its subfields, then I'm going to deny you the possibility of inferring anything as well. And that will shoot you in the foot. So any claim you make, I'm going to say, well, hang on a moment, that's an inference. How do you know that your eyesight's working? How do you know you can trust this? This is your interpretation. It's your inference of what the book is saying. And you just shoot yourself in the foot. So I don't think this is a particularly good line of critique to go down for Mansur. It's self-defeating in my view.
Science
Maybe
is,
jump 5 minutes if he changes tactic.
what am I-
Sorry, say that again.
Maybe jump 5 minutes to see if he changes tactic.
Yeah, all right. Let's go ahead here to about 20 minutes here and see if it gets any better.
There's no design in it.
There's not. It's not. Well, because the design. Design implies intention.
Okay.
There's no intent. No one intentionally designed a bird's eye.
So it's design, but without any conscious designer.
I wouldn't say it's a design
It's still
though.
the same
Then.
stuff.
Yeah,
This is
let's
still
go a
the
little bit
same.
further
There's no
forward and see
change
if
in
we get
tactic
anything. I
here.
apologize, guys, but it's not particularly interesting, and they
No.
keep repeating the same thing here. So I'm not sure if we're going to get any further. There's somebody else joining in now, so maybe there's...
Even
Design a machine.
even though it can, for example.
So wait, if you're saying if you design a
Well, I
machine,
just attach two things together
hello.
with no intention of what it will do, and then magic.
What's that?
No, I thought I thought this was Steve, but it's not.
No.
magically it has all these different
Not
capabilities.
magically.
Oh,
I
wait.
program something, right? Without having intention what it's going to do. And then I make
Well,
it. Let me give you
I
an
don't think
example.
that makes sense. How do
Give
you
you an
program
example.
something without
Look,
any
look,
intention of what
I
it's going to
programmed-
do? That's like saying I write a book, but I have no idea what it's about.
Let me explain.
Like,
Let me explain.
as you do it, you know what
I'm
it
making a
is.
device without a intention of what it's going to do. So I don't.
Okay, it's the same sort of thing, right? He's just repeating himself. We'll just go forward. We'll go forward to 30 minutes. If we don't get anything, I think we'll call this one not a particularly good video, and we'll move on to another one. I think that might be a little bit more interesting. Let's see.
One final first course. I can
Science
analyze.
and religion are in sync on that point. There was one first cause. Yeah.
So there is a first course.
Yeah.
No, they're not, obviously. Those of us that have looked into it just to some degree, no,
why does
science
he
and
say
religion
that?
are not in sync with the first cause. The first cause is one option, but it's not widely held, and there's no consensus on that. So it's certainly a possibility, but even if we have the first cause, you still have a lot of work to do to show that God is the most likely explanation for your first cause.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the characteristics and properties of this first cause?
We don't know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's unknown.
Existence, self-existence, possessing of energy, and a will and consciousness and direction.
Why would it
I-
have
the
a will?
third
Yeah,
one,
that
I'm not
doesn't make
willing to
sense.
say.
Why would it have a will or
Because
consciousness?
why? Why
Yeah.
would I assume that
Yeah,
there's
yeah, that's a
If
big.
you have,
That's a huge
if
assumption.
you have an agent that exists without intending it to happen, without intending to make evolution, will it happen? Without intending.
good?
Okay, so I give you an example. So you have a system like your own home, and you have.
Yeah, you can't use analogies with your own home and stuff like this. Remember, there's a lot of laws of physics acting on matter over billions of years. It's almost incomprehensible to the human mind. So if you then want to make a comparison with your home, hey, could your furniture come about by itself? That's a disingenuous and a false analogy, because there's certain things required for that particular thing in a short amount of time. Whereas, for example, the coming together of molecules to make humans or other life or whatever the case is not the same sort of result. So it's a poor analogy. But then again, I always say, as soon as a Muslim goes to analogy, 99 times out of 100 is going to be a very poor one. It's going to be disanalogous.
But notice
I think
one
this
thing.
stops. I don't know about you, but I don't think there's a lot more in this one, to be
No,
honest.
I
So-
just want to say one thing that I noticed. He is incredibly good at just bombarding people with questions and answering them partially himself without giving the other person much of a possibility to give a different answer. So he's very good at keeping the tiller in the hand and directing where he wants to go. And here, I must admit, he's very good at doing that. He's just because he's shooting off question after question after question, answering some of them, and that's it. So it's excellent control of the situation.
All right, let's go to this one. This is only 20 minutes, so this will hopefully be a little bit more of interest here. I can't remember it. I think I might have watched this at some point, but we'll go through this. Do atheists have a brain? So we're gonna go down this sort of line of thinking, which again, we've heard many times in Speaker's Corner, but let's see how this one goes.
This idea of, the animal kingdom. Why aren't you playing on it? Why aren't you playing on other people to do your something? To take their money? Why hurting you? Where does that come from?
I'm not gonna do that. I'm just saying I can't do it.
It's bouncing around a little bit here, and then we're going to get started.
I can't. Why? Because there's no need.
There we go. Okay, let's move it to there.
I have teeth designed to chew meat, and I have enzymes in my stomach designed to digest proteins from meat. A vegetarian cannot argue with you saying, no, it's too harmful. You're actually harming another animal. You're taking another life away. Right?
Well, yes, they can, because you don't have to survive on meat alone. But hopefully this isn't the vegetarian one. I know Stops doesn't like that particular lines, but hopefully they're not going down that route.
They can talk to me. They have the right to tell me what
No,
I want.
when you say right, I'm saying it is
I have
not.
the right to tell them no.
No, what I'm saying is it is not justifiable to say you should not eat meat.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so it's not justifiable. Likewise, this idea that
Okay, but then again, you should ask him, why is it not justifiable? And he'll go back to, well, we've got teeth that's designed to eat meat. Well, have we really? We've got teeth that's designed to eat certain bits of meat. If I gave you a wildebeest, your teeth wouldn't be able to penetrate its thick hide. And if we look at teeth that is designed to eat meat, they look radically different to ours. So That's not necessarily the case. We have adapted that we can eat meat and non-meat products. That's true. But the question is an ethical one, not one as in, are we designed that we can survive on it or even thrive on it? Because there's other options. But more, I don't know if this is that sort of video, but it's more a case of, is it morally justified to eat meat under whatever circumstances?
If it doesn't harm anyone, then I can do whatever I like. That doesn't seem to be a justifiable principle, because in nature we see the total opposite.
That's why I'm saying no, it's not 100%. It can't be done 100% no way. But you have to try not to hurt others. You have to try.
Yeah. But when you say try,
doesn't mean you're gonna reach it. Absolutely 100%.
would you ask a lion not to eat a zebra?
Exactly. That's why
So
I'm telling you.
it's not a matter of trying, is it?
Done 100%.
But it's not. Is it a matter of
Yeah, but a lion survives on eating animals of some sort, right? The question is, do humans need to do that? And the answer seems to be no. You don't need to have meat to survive or even thrive, although there may be certain people that require it. Again, that would have to be demonstrated. But using a lion as an example that is adapted specifically to eat meat is a poor example. Yes, you're not going to tell the lion to go and eat grass. It's not going to survive, of course.
of trying?
You have to try.
Is it a matter of trying though? A lion.
That in this case.
Think about it. Why would you not even try to get a lion not to eat a zebra?
Because I don't want to.
Now, just explain, because it's not designed not to eat that. Its entire system has been focused on eating meat. Just like you couldn't get a zebra to eat meat. It wouldn't be able to survive on that. A, it wouldn't be able to chew it. B, it probably wouldn't be able to digest it properly. So it's a very straightforward answer.
It's not about lying. This is the nature. It's nature. So if we see this as a natural thing, and human beings are also animal in the natural kingdom, because if you don't believe in God, human beings are essentially animals.
Okay.
In that sense, what basis do you have to justify when you see everything behaves the same way and you come along and say, I should try not to?
Okay, I'll give it a quick shot here off the top of my head. Number one, we have the ability to make moral decisions, i.e. that we have we can see the consequence of our actions. We can think about whether we would want to, if the positions were reversed, would we want that to happen? It seems to us that all animals want to live. They don't want to be killed. And so if we can avoid that, would we not want to inflict that unnecessary pain? We wouldn't want to inflict that on animals unless we had to in order to survive. But if we didn't need it for survival, then would we want to do it? So we have a unique ability that animals don't, that we can think about the consequences of our actions and put ourselves in their shoes. If the roles were reversed, would we be okay with that? And the answer seems to be no, it isn't, right? So this is not a difficult thing to, and there's a lot more we could probably say if I was, I wasn't thinking this was going to be a vegetarian or a vegan video, but there could be a lot more to be said about this. So I think it's not a difficult argument to put forward.
Just like that, why wouldn't I try? I don't understand.
Why wouldn't a lion try?
I don't know why.
Because it will go against the nature. It will go against the nature, right?
Let's go.
Yeah? You will go against nature. So likewise, if you are an animal, believing in no God, you'll be going against your nature.
No, that's not the case. What do you mean your nature? Are you suggesting that the nature is to just eat meat or eat a combination of? We can make a decision on this. We're sort of engineered, teleonomically designed, if you like, to be able to have a wide variety of diet that a lot of other animals can't have. So you can't equate humans with other animals. Other animals are far more specifically designed for a particular diet that humans have a wider variety on.
If you are a harmless person,
Why do you say it's nonsense? No, it's
Yes, it's
no.
you're right.
Discussions are endless.
There is no way this discussion will go
No. Do you know why I'm raising this point? No. Do you know why I'm raising this point? As a Muslim, we have standards in which we live our life by. Standards.
We come from the system, society.
Yeah.
We done
So
all
what
of
led
these
you?
things.
What led you to leave those
And we
standards?
realize it never bring you happiness.
live your life.
No.
Live your life.
You will not be happy.
Don't live it fully.
Live your life.
Yeah, but if you think about how you live your life, no, just a few points before you go. If you think, if live your life according to certain principles.
According to what?
Certain
I
principles.
have my own principles.
Absolutely.
I have very good principles.
Absolutely. Now, are your principles the best, or are there better principles than yours around?
What? Muslim principles?
I'm asking.
What? Sorry, what's the question?
You live.
Okay, so you're trying to go towards the moral thing. Okay, so we've moved away from sort of veganism, probably, thank goodness. But now he's asking, is the principles good? Well, you have to, good in relation to what? You have to have some baseline in order to establish what is good and what is less good or what is better. And that hasn't been established. So again, it's like a question that floats by itself out in midair that isn't, tied to anything. Is yours the best? Well, best compared to what?
Live your life according to certain principles. Everyone's entitled to do that.
According to human philosophy.
Human philosophy of no harm, which we were discussing.
Because philosophy is based on reason. I can prove my own morality. I can tell you why. That is good enough.
I love this.
That's as good as it gets.
That's what we're actually discussing. So it wasn't a fruitless discussion when we were talking
I don't
about.
have to follow something without questioning. No, I have to question it and prove why it's good and why I believe in X and Y.
This
Yeah,
is
that's a good point, right? You're not just going to follow it blindly. You're going to test to find out why would you accept something as good or bad. But then again, of course, the immediate question is, well, how do you test it on? What is the standard by which you're going to test something, right? And there's a number of moral systems that have been put forward in philosophy, etc. But the Muslim has a much harder time here, because if you turn it back on them and say, well, how do you know what is good? They're going to have to say, well, because what Allah says. Well, how do you know what Allah says is good? And now they're in a big pickle. Now they will battle. And I'm still waiting to have that discussion with any of these guys online, but they seem to, I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But maybe Yusuf Pondus, who's going to tell us all about the Euthyphro dilemma, is going to enlighten us all why that is a...
You still hope that?
Well, apparently he's going to be doing some stream or other where he's going to discuss this and tell us why it's not a good objection. I'll be interested in hearing that.
This is a very good approach, and that's why we're saying, if you don't believe in God, what would be the standards of morality?
If I don't believe in God, maybe God exists. Maybe.
It is a good question for us as atheists to think about. If we don't have a standard, that's fine, but how do we decide something? If we have a standard, can we put it forward in a coherent and concise manner that somebody else can understand? They may not agree with it, but at least you can put it forward, because we know what they're going to say, right? So that's the easy part, and we can go up and challenge that. But I think what's good for other people to hear is, okay, well, if you don't believe in God, how do you establish right and wrong in your view? And I think that's something that we all as atheists and non-believers should have at least some idea of how we do that. And it's not just something that floats in the back of our head that we have no clue about, we can't articulate. I think it is something that is worth us, taking the time to think about, or at least reading a little bit on or whatever.
Do you believe in God?
Well, maybe. I don't know.
So do you get your principles of...
What is the meaning of this?
Okay, I'll explain further. Do you take your principles from a divine source?
No.
Right.
You can't take it because you don't talk to any divine source. But you can think, oh, maybe something exists. But that's, you put it on the side.
But in principle, do you agree, in principle, if there is a creator and the creator gives you a moral code, if hypothetically, right? If the creator exists, like you said, maybe, right? Maybe means there could be a creator.
By the way, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I hope there's a creator because it's a good.
But
thing.
I want to explore this point though,
because
about morality.
It's a good thing to have a.
The guy that in the Christmas ad should stop talking now. Let Mansur get it all out, because then you can critique it. As long as you keep butting in here, he's not going to get a chance to get it out. In which case, then you can critique it, right? Let him get it out.
Superior thing. Don't follow your own beliefs or your own.
So the superior morality would be from
I don't follow
the
my
creator.
own intentions all the time. For example, maybe I want to punch someone. I'm not going to follow it. So it's good to think, there's a superior thing, which is morality in my view. It could be God. It's good. I'm not.
So do you agree?
I hope God exists.
No. So do you agree that in principle, if there's a creator, the morality that comes from the creator would be the best?
I think
would be the best?
Yes.
No. How do you establish that? Just because something created you doesn't mean that what it says about what you ought to do, what you should do, the ought part, is the best. How do you establish that? This is the dilemma that's been around for thousands of years for theists, and I'm not convinced that they've ever given a substantial answer to this. But he's just taking it a priori that if a God exists, then whatever he says must be the best or good. No, that's entirely what's under discussion, and I I don't accept that. You need to make the argument for it. And you need to overcome Euthyphro's dilemma. And to date, I've not heard a sufficient argument, even from very sophisticated theists.
Right.
Principle.
So the
I
question.
can't believe it philosophically. There's nothing to prove it. But in principle, yes, I think it's
I don't
good.
understand your question. There's nothing to prove what? The morality
I can't-
or the creator?
Creator. I can't believe, philosophically, I can't believe that a creator exists. But I think it is a better principle if the...
That's understood. So when we say you can't prove there's a creator, how did you disprove there isn't?
No, who said that is true?
Okay. So the question now is, you're in a position.
No, come on. This is the most primitive thing there is. Please.
It's a common tactic, though, isn't it? Okay, so how did you disprove it? Well, it depends on which God, right? I think certain gods can be disproved if they have a contradictory nature, or there's claims made about them that contradict each other, or indeed if the claims made in their books contradict reality, and if the claim is that if they contradict reality, then the God would not exist, then I think you could demonstrate that. It all depends on what the claims are. If it's some nebulous God, then probably no. Like a deist God is difficult, if not impossible, to disprove, but other gods I don't think are certainly impossible, and it depends on the God.
Yeah.
But that's where I'd be asking them the questions X, Y, and Z to establish what sort of God do you believe in, and then see whether they accept the view that if something like the Quran was shown to be man-made, that would show that Allah doesn't exist. Now, when we did the stream with Hamza, he wouldn't accept that with me, right? I said to him, hey, if I could disprove the Quran was from man, would that show that Allah doesn't exist? He says no, or words to that effect. In which case, it's like, okay, what would you accept? Because to me, many of the Muslims make the claim that if the Quran was shown to be man-made, then it couldn't have been from God, in which case they wouldn't be a Muslim, and then Allah would likely not exist.
But that's what he said.
Who did?
Hamza.
Oh, I thought he was stepping away from that. He wouldn't accept that if the Quran was not true, that Allah didn't exist. That's what I remember him saying. I'm like, okay, at that stage, well, what would you accept to show that Allah doesn't exist?
I remember
and that's why,
saying
again,
that the Quran has been challenged and has been found not to be in any way incorrect, no inconsistency, no contradiction, no mistakes, no nothing. If anybody's going to show that to him, he will change his religion.
Okay, well, when I said that to him, he stepped back and he wasn't prepared to accept that. So again, maybe he's being sort of contradictory, which wouldn't surprise me.
You see the guy with the black skull cap?
Yeah.
Isn't there a whole history to this guy that he was radicalized and was on his way to Syria or something, got arrested and all that shit?
No idea. I mean, some of them look alike once they've grown a beard, so I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure if it's him.
Okay.
Position where you cannot prove or disprove a creator.
No.
But the fact...
And it will never change.
Yeah, he still
that's
has
not
morality.
an indecisive, it will never change.
But the reality is...
But now we've gone on from morality to disproving a creator, right? The jump there. You've got to be with Mansur and these guys, you've got to keep it focused. And if you're not used to speaking, like the guy in the Christmas cap is probably not used to having like serious dialogue, and especially not with people who want to shift the conversation all over the show, then you're just going to be led along. It's like you're going down a stream and you've got no control. And you need to focus in on whatever the discussion is and not change topics, bounce around, because they do this a lot.
Yeah, but
either
they're getting quite clever at detecting this, because I remember I did this once and I said, okay, now's the time to change. And then I started and then immediately he came in and said, okay, thank you very much for your contribution, bye-bye, and kicked me. So they're quite good at detecting this when somebody's taking over.
Yeah, which is harder to do in the park, but it's easier to do online, right? You just get rid of somebody.
No.
I wanted to go to morality.
Opposite.
Right?
Opposite, because in online, they just kick you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, they just kick you online.
Oh, sorry,
In the
then
park,
I got it wrong. Yeah,
in the park, it's not so easy for you to walk away. Well, you can, but you could be shown to be quite running away.
Yeah, more shame, walk of shame.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There is a creator or there isn't. Yeah. Right. So if there is a creator, there has to be ways of proving it.
Well, that doesn't follow. It depends which creator again. If it's a deist creator, how do you prove a deist creator? And this is the problem, right? I'm going to highlight it again. I think it's partially disingenuous for the Muslims to say a creator. They should always be using the word Allah, because they don't believe in a creator. They believe in a specific one with specific attributes and has undertaken specific things and interacted in this world. But tell me how you prove or disprove a deist creator. You can't. If the claim is simply that a deist creator exists and either created the universe or didn't and is just watching, whatever the case is. So no, it depends on the creator.
So this is why I said, there you go, because now you have something you can latch onto. Because now you can go and say, okay, well, what are you actually talking about? What is this? Who is this?
Correct.
Where do you get this from?
And I think that's something that we need to do. You know, if we do speak to Muslims online, Stops, you and I get another chance, we don't allow them to use the word a creator. What do you believe in? No, you don't believe in a generic creator. You believe in Allah. Did Allah do X, Y, and Z? Is this the properties and attributes of Allah? Right, let's talk about this. We're not going to let you go to some, airy-fairy generic creator, because that way you can avoid having to deal with specifics. And the only reason, like I say, I think they do this is because in their mind, a non-believer needs to go from the process of, hey, believing in that a God is possible to their specific God. But actually, if you prove your specific God, then you bypass the other step, and you don't need to do that. And when you say a specific God and you actually mean your God, then I want to know that. So to me, I'm not going to let them do that anymore. I'm going to go, as soon as I hear the word a creator or God, are you referring to Allah, the 99 names, the author, supposedly, vicariously the author of this Quran? Is that who you're talking about? Nail it down so that once you start to make specific claims and you challenge that particular God, they can't then jump back to, but you're talking about a creator. No, talking about your specific one.
And they're not convincing.
And what would be a convincing way of proving it?
I don't think there is a way.
You're actually closing all the avenues of knowledge,
because if
aren't
I tell
you?
you,
Okay, so this point is something that for me personally, and Stops, maybe you disagree or maybe you don't, but we need to give some sort of criteria, because if we don't give criteria, that's the response that you'll get. You're closing it. You're closed-minded. Nothing will change your mind. Okay, I'm not going to speak to you. No point in speaking to you. So if we don't have some way of accepting it, now you could be the ultimate skeptic and say there's nothing that could convince me, or you can go the Dillahuntly route of, hey, if God knows what it is, then he would know. I mean, you could do that specific thing, but I think what they're looking for is something that you can put forward that they can attempt to meet, because we're doing the same, right? I'm specifically doing the same. For example, when Hamza says, hey, prove God doesn't exist, I want to know, what do you mean by proof? What would you accept that I would need to do in order to show you that God does not exist? I need to know that specifics, and then I can tackle it. And the same for them. They want to know what it is. And if you say, well, nothing, well, then obviously that's the response you're going to get. So everybody has it differently. I personally don't want to go down that route, because I'm expecting them to give me falsification criteria, and I want to give them the same.
Well, the thing is that Mansur asked me exactly this question in the online, and I said, look, I'll give you A and B. And I told him A is exactly God should know and would and did and that. And B is, I would expect the Quran to be in everybody's mind in the perfect way, in every language it could be understood. So there's two different options here. One is the metaphorical one, and one is the hands-on, tangible one. So I'm giving them both options. And they couldn't handle either one of them.
Yeah, but but I agree with that. So right now you're given the criteria. Let's see if your God can do it.
maybe if I hear a sound from, I could be hallucinating.
So you've got to be very careful going with this sort of stuff. You've got to have a think about it before you answer this. And I understand this gentleman's just walking through Speaker's Corner, and maybe he hasn't had this. But if you just give any old thing, hey, if I heard a voice, if I saw the clouds part, they're going to respond with something like, well, okay, if that were the case, how do you know that isn't aliens or something like that? So you've got to bypass that, or, you'd still deny it if you heard the sound in your ear or whatever. You think that you're mad or whatever the case is. So you've got to think of criteria that is not impossible, but that you set a high bar for, that a God could trivially do in some way that could be verified, and not just from your own senses alone. Because many people have claimed that, and none of us believe that. So we couldn't ask for that criteria, in order for it to be justified for us. We'd need something that could be verified, at least by other people. Otherwise, you don't know that, your senses aren't deluding you. Whatever that criteria is. So I think we've got to be a bit thoughtful about answering this question.
So there is no proof. There will never be a proof.
So what gives you that certainty there won't be any proof?
Here's the man, Abu, that was on the stream the other night. So this was the fella that was on Hamza's stream. I happened to be on Sunday, and I was typing in text, and he had a lot to say. Abu, if you're more than welcome to come on the stream now. We'll stop the video here specifically for you, and we'll make sure it's not an echo chamber. So you are invited right now to come and join us. We can talk about this exact video, or you can tell us why you think Islam is true and what good reasons you have. The invitation is open. We will do it with you now. So we don't want it to be an echo chamber. We're always asking for Muslims to come on, and very seldom do they do so. So in the absence of them doing so, we're going to show where we think their reasoning is in error. But you are more than welcome to come and tell us and show us why that's not the case. So the invitation is open. We are not like Hamza on a Sunday that won't have other people on. I'll bring you on right now if you want to. So by all means, put it into the comments and you're welcome to join us.
How are you certain?
Because you can't prove something like this. I can't prove something like this.
No, how are you certain?
How do you prove this?
No. This is the question we're asking. If there is a
I could
possibility.
tell you, I will believe there's a creator if something happens, like a miracle happens. But
Would you?
That could be anything. That could be hallucinating.
Exactly. So
That was a terrible answer by that guy, to be honest, because he sort of falsified his own criteria. So yeah, I mean, you've got to be either, if you're not sure and they don't go down that route, or if you are, then give a concrete answer. But that was not a good answer from that fella.
in principle, there has to be a way of establishing the existence of a creator.
But
if you haven't found ways of doing that,
No, I'm
Not
sorry,
a creator,
I reject
right?
that claim.
If there's a creator that's accessed in this world, you know, the theistic creator, yes, then I think there can be falsification criteria, but not just any creator. And that's why I say stop using the word creator. Talk about your specific one, because then we can be more, then we can challenge that a lot more. Just some random generic one, yeah, that's harder.
Yeah, but I don't think
That-
that Mansur
then perhaps-
understands that there's a contradiction in what he's saying, because he says that his specific creator is outside of this universe, but meddles inside the universe. So this is a contradiction. And you
Correct,
can't have a God outside that is undetectable and then have one inside and still claim is undetectable. It doesn't work. So he can't. He doesn't realize what he's doing.
You will decide the way.
no, not me. That's what we're discussing.
Rob,
There has to.
just stop here. Look at this. I mean, this is so idiotic, all right? You need to go on when Subur is on. You are the one constantly viewing their channel, guy. No, this is not the channel of Subur that we are reviewing. Okay, I've done Subur. I've dealt with him. I'm finished with him. I've shown that he doesn't understand biology. He doesn't understand philosophy. He doesn't understand politics. He doesn't understand ideologies. I've done so many videos on this idiot to show that he is totally incompetent and absolutely has no idea what he's talking about. Why should I still go there if he is too much of a coward to come and talk to us? Why should I run after him and try and catch him somewhere so that I can tell him he's an idiot? I've already done that. And so
Yeah, you've
has
had a
Rob.
conversation anyway. So
this is
and I've been
stupid
on the
what
Dawa
you are
channel. He
saying,
wasn't
okay?
on. That's time. It depends when we're available and when they're doing a stream that we can both be on. We've invited them, by the way, and just so you know as well, let's be honest. Hamza said unequivocally he won't come on. Now, if I said I won't go on one of their channels, you Muslims will be dancing around going, ha, 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 look, you're scared. But instead of us saying Hamza's scared, well, I mean, he probably is to some degree, but we don't go and shout that from the rooftop. So at least be consistent. I want to hear you in the comments telling us how Hamza is scared to come on the Gin and Tonic show. Be an intellectually consistent Muslim if you're going to say, hey, well, we're not on their shows. Well, both Stops and I have been on different shows at different times, and we've invited them, and we have it on record when I invited them. No, we're not coming on your show, right? So please be consistent.
And the
Just
other
to be
thing,
aware-
Maybe I'll tell you,
there's
maybe
another thing, Rob, that I want to point out. And it's not about us going on their show and them coming on our show. I have also offered to go and have a chat on a neutral platform, on a neutral place, which is not biased in any way, so that some idiot can come and say, yeah, it's an echo chamber. No, I am totally open to having a conversation, to having a dialogue with anyone who is a Muslim or not. And this is definitely not something that I will exclude, it doesn't matter where. As long as you have idiots saying, yeah, you have to go to Speaker's Corner to be able to talk to them. No, I don't. We live in the 21st century. We have the capabilities of using telecommunications intelligently to go and talk to people. And it doesn't matter on what platform. So it's not them versus us or something. No, it is us having a dialogue. And that's it. Sorry, yeah.
If an animal talks to me, I'll believe there's God. But
You see,
what does that mean?
my friend,
Does it mean
there has to be a way of proving it. If the creator exists,
I don't
there has-
know. No,
so if you
there
don't
isn't,
know,
because you can't talk about something that's invisible. You can't
Invincible.
decide- You can't
We
decide
are
what is
blocked
Gravity,
on
gravity.
Dawa, you fool. Why can't you understand this? Watch my lips. We are blocked on SC Dawa. We are not allowed to go on SC Dawa. Can you understand? Can you comprehend this? Can you listen? We are not allowed on SC Dawa. They will not allow us on there. Do you comprehend that? Can you understand that? My goodness.
I might still be able to go on, but they've definitely blocked you. I don't know. Anyway, we're doing a show here, but we're inviting them. They can come over here, or you can join us, like I say. But if you feel like you're not up for the task, that's fine. Not everybody is. I'm not going to, shout the odds at you and tell you you're a keyboard warrior, like I hear Muslims say to other people. Not everybody wants to speak. That's fine. You can
Of
have your
course,
comments.
he's a
But we're going to
coward.
continue
Well,
reviewing this video. Otherwise, we get sidetracked with this.
Yeah, but why is he in the comments making snide comments instead of just coming on the show? Of course he's a coward. Of course he's somebody who's sitting there like a little girl, and then instead of coming and saying, listen, what you're doing is this and this is wrong because of that, and what will be better is this. This is what I would expect from an intellectually honest person. Not this kind of little girl behavior. No, you're so mean, you're so terrible. My goodness. Okay, carry on, sorry.
is gravity visible or invisible? Gravity. If you drop your bottle, would that go up or down?
Oh, now you're talking about...
No. Because you made a very interesting example. Invincibility.
Yeah.
Gravity is not visible.
It can be proved scientifically.
Yeah. So you have to now.
Gravity, I have to admit.
No, you have to admit that
I'm not
it is not about invincibility.
It's good to admit.
That's the problem, right? You agree? It is not about visibility or invisibility. Yeah.
Okay, but the question is, what would it take for the guy in the Christmas hat to believe in a God? And obviously, something that is visible is going to be more persuasive than something that's invisible. Presumably, that's kind of what he's trying to get at. But that isn't the only sort of evidence that one would accept, just visible evidence. Of course not. Nobody's claiming, hopefully he's not claiming that. But if you're going to make an extraordinary claim, if the evidence was in fact visible, and you knew what evidence you would accept, then that would be more convincing than something that is invisible. I think that's a simple point to make.
So the creator's existence and proving the existence of the creator is not because the creator is not visible. Because gravity is not visible, but you can prove it.
Okay, but now all we have to do is say, okay, we'll do the same thing. What predictions can we make with your creator? How do we establish, in the same way that we have with gravity, that your creator exists? And the response will be, well, you can't use science for that. But hang on a moment. Your creator interfered in this world. He made specific claims. He did certain things in this universe. And if he did so, then in principle, science can be brought to bear. So that argument doesn't fly. And I've had that discussion with these guys, well, not Mansur in particular, but with the other guys on Dawa. And so that doesn't work. So if you're going to use the thing, then you've got to use the same principle. You've got to be consistent. So, okay, if we're going to use that for gravity, then we're going to bring the same principle to bear for your God because he has interfered in this world. Even if he's quite invisible, the same principle applies. So, and if we do that, well, then you're in big trouble, right?
And he's just given him a pass. He's just said, look, if I drop something, it's going to fall down, it'll never go up. So you've already shown how you can demonstrate gravity. All he has to do is, okay, demonstrate God, finished. But he doesn't do that.
You use the same principle, right? But then they want to steer away from that principle, claiming that you can't do it. Well, science can't directly prove God exists or doesn't exist, but it can indirectly do so if he's interfered in this world. A deist God, no, there you can't do it. That's fair enough.
No, gravity, you can ask questions about it. Oh, this glass...
It falls because of gravity.
You can ask a question. But how do you begin to ask a question about God?
If there was no God, would there be anything?
That is a bit of a silly claim. Of course, there's nothing in principle that suggests that if there wasn't a God, something wouldn't exist. I mean, that's a terrible question.
If there was no gravity, would that fall? We can ask questions.
Yeah,
exactly.
But
so
I think it's a different thing.
It's not a different thing. It's the same kind of inquiry.
That's
the inquiry is about cause and effect.
Specific thing. Why did the glass fall?
Because the effect of falling was due to a cause.
How do you ask? Why are we here? That doesn't intrinsically mean there is a creator.
To him it does.
It's not the
Would
same
you not
thing.
agree?
Sorry?
Oh, no, sorry. I just wanted. I thought you can hear what I'm saying above the noise, so that you don't.
So
need
you're,
to
you're
stop.
quite soft, so you just need to speak up a little bit over the
Okay,
noise, then we
because
can hear
I'm
you.
like half a meter away. Is that louder now?
Yeah. Speak with a, and make it even a bit louder than that. If you want to talk over the videos as like commentary over the video. Otherwise, I'll stop it because I think you want to speak, which is fine. I'm happy
Okay,
to
I've
do
jacked
that.
it up a bit. No, I just said, there you go. I mean, that's it.
Agree.
This is a very
The reason the line of questioning is this: why does that fall?
Yeah.
Because falling is an effect.
yes.
And we are now attributing a cause to this effect because
Yeah,
what we
there must be
see,
something.
there has to be a cause for the
Yeah,
effects.
yes.
So if, for example, you are here, there has to be a cause for your existence
Yes,
because you're an effect.
absolutely, absolutely.
If the universe exists
Of course,
or
of
began
course.
to exist,
Of course
there
so.
has to be a cause
Yeah.
for its existence.
Well, that's only if you believe the universe began to exist. If you think that the universe is past eternal or infinite into the past, then of course that isn't the case. It's always existed. So that would only apply under certain circumstances.
So we can ask this question.
We can ask this.
Exactly.
Why
So
did we exist? Yeah. You can ask it, but there is no answer.
Yeah, but why question is, in my view, begging the question, right? Because it already implicitly implies that there is an intention for us to exist. And if the entire question is, did we come about through natural processes that does not have intention, and then you ask the why question, it's already loading against the naturalistic view. So in my view, that's a begging the question. When somebody says why and they haven't established the God principle first, or their particular God ideally, then I think that's begging the question. They should be going, okay, how is it that we came into existence? That's a more neutral question to ask.
when we attributed this falling and said it was gravity, you see, look, we said this was due to gravity. So you actually put an answer forward. Rather than saying, there is no answer why the bottle falls on the ground. You actually went along
Maybe
and put...
there will be an answer. I haven't heard it yet. Nothing's convincing.
So that's why we need to know what will be convincing to us. I mean, interestingly, you did say, if people
Evidence,
demand...
evidence is convincing. There is
Exactly. But what level of evidence?
of anything.
There you go. You see, he's asked the question, which we've got to be ready for. What level of evidence? And now you need to give a reply, which I've done, Stops has done. But if you haven't thought about it, then I encourage you as a viewer who's a non-believer, what evidence would suffice for you? You don't want to make it, well, hopefully you don't want to set the bar too low that it's easy to do, but you also want to set it impossibly high because then it looks like there's nothing you will accept, unless that is your view. If you are of the view that nothing will ever convince you and you're the ultimate skeptic, fine, but then you won't really have much of a conversation with a theist.
Anything. Even scientists, they don't have it.
To give you an
They say they
example,
don't know how to
to give an example, the skepticism or hyper-skepticism that we are illustrating in this particular discussion, have you had a brain scan of your own self? Right. So you haven't seen your own brain.
So this is where we get to the title of the video, Do Atheists Have a Brain? It's a terribly flawed analogy, but we're going to let him make it for the sake of it. They do it a lot with all kinds of things. Is your father your father and all that sort of stuff, right? And at the end we can go through why this is a terrible analogy again.
Do you have a booger in your nose?
Does your brain exist?
I know it's that. Yeah.
What evidence do you have to suggest that your brain exists?
I don't think it's
Well, I could say that the fact that I have consciousness and I can infer from consciousness that I have a brain, so we are unaware of anything that gives rise to consciousness without a brain. No brain, no consciousness. And for that very fact, I can infer rightly, reasonably, that I have a brain without actually seeing it. Can you now do the same, please, for me with your God, your specific God? That's a short, neat version, and put the question back on them. Now, using the principle I've just applied, let's do the same with your God, and let's see how far you get.
I don't.
No,
I don't
we
think
just want
that
to we just want to
you're just
extrapolate
asking-
the reasonings that we
It's
use
not the same
in
thing.
terms of the level of skepticism that we use in everyday thinking. Have you been to Africa?
Where in Africa?
Okay, maybe you have. Have you
I've
been
been
to?
to Africa.
Can you,
Okay, have you been to
did you use
Indonesia?
that the last time, or was that him, or was it somebody else?
No, that was Hamza, I think. Yeah, it was Hamza. Have you been to China or whatever? They all use the same sort of script, right? And you just got to cut it off at the beginning, as long as you know what the intention is. If you're new to this sort of thing, you're going to kind of answer the question not knowing where it's going. But like you and I and others that have heard this before know exactly where it's going. And we can shortcut the whole thing. And we just grant that we accept that certain places exist without having been there. Why? Because we have evidence for it, actual evidence in this world, satellite photographs. We could phone somebody up, we could get in a plane and fly there. Again, all we want you to do is use the same principle and demonstrate that God exists. That's
Well,
it.
the thing is, by saying Africa, by saying China, he's just defined it into existence, because this refers to an exact place that we have labeled as something. So it has to exist before we can give it a label.
Yeah.
Egypt is Africa.
Have you been to Indonesia?
Egypt. Or you think,
No.
you mean Nigeria?
Have you been to Indonesia? Indonesia.
No.
Right. Does Indonesia exist?
I don't think you're making sense.
Sorry?
I,
No, let's try to understand how we built the level of confidence away from skepticism. No, the reason why I'm using this, look,
Okay, he's sort of getting a bit cautious there. Like I say, this is not a difficult question to answer, and in fact, it actually backfires on them. And so we should be happy to answer this question. We should grant them all of this stuff. It's no problem for us. And
but
now we
always
just
ask-
ask them to use the
always-
same principles.
Yeah, but always add the so what.
Yeah, you could do that. Yep, you could add so what. Because then he's going to say, well, okay, well, blah, blah, blah. You accept these things without seeing them. Oh, I just accept God without seeing them. No. Hang on a moment. No.
Exactly. And
No,
now
you
what?
don't get that
Yeah,
equivocation, I'm afraid. That's a fallacy. No.
my friend,
You can do
it is simple
You can do
to.
better than
Can
that.
you
Listen.
Can you Google Indonesia?
I'm addressing what we call skepticism
Yeah.
and how we can be certain in affirming something. For example, when we haven't been to Indonesia, we can Google it. So we are trusting the people who put up pictures in Google or description in Google. So you are relying in what
We're
we
human
call.
beings, of course we have to trust.
Look.
What he's getting to here is you're relying on testimonial evidence. Hey, I'm just doing the same. No. Where there's a lot more evidence to these things. But even if even if it was only testimonial evidence, it's testimonial evidence of a naturally occurring event. You are suggesting that you accept testimonial evidence of supernatural or extraordinary claims. I don't. Why do you accept that? And to equivocate between a natural testimonial account and a supernatural one is an equivocation. It's a category error. They are not the same category, and therefore you can't equivocate on them.
The other
I
thing
don't have a
is,
problem with that.
if you are in Indonesia, how do you know that you are in Indonesia? Somebody's told you that you're in Indonesia. So you could take this, like reductio ad absurdum, which you always point out. So you can go to extremes with this.
Yep.
So you are relying on what we call testimony.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
if we take that principle,
Testimony,
that testimony is a reliable evidence. So now I say, look, Prophet.
Yeah, that's why I think maybe Jesus exists. Yeah.
No,
Jesus
so
exists,
not
Muhammad
maybe.
exists.
No, you shouldn't have granted that. Let him finish his point. Don't interrupt him. Because he's saying that it's reliable. Eyewitness testimony can be somewhat reliable. I was listening to something the other day about how they've done many, many studies on human psychology and how testimonial evidence is actually quite unreliable. So it depends what the claim is and how many witnesses you have. But even when you have multiple witnesses for a relatively mundane claim, even that, you'll get different accounts. So in actual fact, eyewitness testimony is pretty unreliable, generally speaking.
Are you saying maybe or definitely Indonesia exists?
God in Google.
Definitely. Good. So now, if we find information that's been passed to us by testimony, there are hundreds and thousands of men of God that receive revelation from God as prophets and messengers, and then they said, look, and then we relied and trusted their testimony. So if
Can
I
you just
rely on their
discuss for a minute,
testimony,
Rob? I see this mistake being made over and over and over. No, there are not hundreds of thousands of people who have the testimony. No, we have one testimony of somebody saying hundreds of thousands have experienced this. There's a huge difference. Because I've heard Christians make the same mistake where they said, well, hundreds testified that they saw Jesus. No, there is one testimony which says 500 saw Jesus. That's a huge difference. So what he is saying is the hundreds of thousands is just one source which says there were hundreds of thousands, and we need to understand the difference.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? And that source likely wasn't an eyewitness themselves, right? So they got third-hand information from, or claim to have got third-hand information from other people. And even that one source wouldn't have got it from hundreds of thousands. They would have they would have inferred that this person said it, that person said that he had 50 people around him, and so on and so on. So it becomes this long chain, and actually it becomes 10th-hand information ultimately, unless you've got 100,000 people all in one place witnessing some sort of extraordinary event. But other than that, even then, it's not going to be even second-hand.
No, he's talking about the prophets. He's talking about the messengers that were given the message. And it's not that hundreds of thousands of people were given the message and then sent all over the globe. This is nonsense.
Yeah, well, that's obviously his claim, as you say, that one person made that claim. And how do we establish that, right? And again, the question to ask him is, well, how do you falsify this? If that's the case, then we should see the similarity in this message, very fine similarity, not just that people believe in some sort of something that's not necessarily naturalistic. I mean, that's terrible. I'd be embarrassed to bring something like that up. But it should be a single God, and the central place of worship is Mecca, and virtually every culture around the world believes that, and they all sort of have some way to demonstrate that that's the particular way. They pray in the same way, that the sun sets in that direction, whatever it is, that all points to this one central place from which this religion originated. That would be evidence in their favor. But of course, we've got exactly the opposite. The evidence is totally against them, where every culture has got their own thing. None of them have the specific view. And then they won't go, oh, well, most of them have a belief in a God. Well, now all you're doing is shifting the goalposts, and that's very, very weak evidence. Nobody should accept that, least of all you guys.
Testimony and trust the testimony, and you rely on the testimony of Google. Why are you going to be...
But it isn't just the testimony of Google, right? You can get satellite maps. You could actually go up in an aircraft high enough up and see the outline. Or you could be in the space station. You could watch the live event, the live thing. Unless you're going to be a skeptic that all of that is just trying to fool you. But I think that would be ridiculous or absurd.
They're not the same.
Inconsistent.
Testimony of Jesus is a different testimony from someone who went to Indonesia.
Absolutely.
That is the point. Please stop being smart.
Say again. Explain that a bit more. Say Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes, a testimony of
he said,
someone who saw...
Brilliant. Now he's going straight to Muhammad. This is where you need to stay, right? Once you can get him there, well, you and I would get him there quickly, stops with these other guys sort of get led around before he suddenly brings it himself. But once he gets there, whichever way, the quick way with us or the long way with this other guy, that's where you want to stick, right? Now you've got to produce the evidence.
Who said is a different testimony from someone
who said I have been...
Please understand this and stop repeating the point.
No. Look, you cannot just simply brush the argument away underneath the carpet.
That's why
the argument is raised. You have to show how the argument is invalid. I've given you examples.
What is the argument? That there were 100,000 prophets? Is that, come on, you got to do better than that. And you mentioned something about Muhammad, but you didn't say much about it. What is your actual argument? I'm not clear. I don't know if you know, Stops.
It's a claim. It's not an argument. It's just a claim.
Well, even what the claim is. What's the specific claim that he's making here, that he claims that the fellow is sweeping under the carpet?
That he's saying that Muhammad said it and therefore it's true.
Okay, well, yeah, if that's the claim, that's incredibly weak. Especially around, extraordinary claims, even if we granted all the stuff that we've talked about before, that he's the most truthful guy in the world. That doesn't
But
mean
he was
can't be
known as the
mistaken.
reliable one. This is the whole point they have.
Yeah, this is a terribly flawed argument.
Example about testimony. Like, you have not an image of your own brain. The testimony that you have is other people, their brain scan demonstrates they have a brain. But you haven't done a scan of your own brain.
Yeah, but he could do, right? But he can also infer that he has a brain because he has consciousness. And consciousness doesn't arise, as far as we can tell, anywhere without being attached to a brain. So you don't even need to, but you could get just do the same thing, please. Just be consistent. And when you try to do that with your God or your prophet, then it's a monumental fail.
So you have now made, not testimony, do you agree? You have made a generalization based on assumption that other people, no, this is how your evidence works.
If someone tells you that Indonesia exists, you can actually go.
Have you gone there?
Yes.
There you go.
Wait. Have you? No, wait there. Excuse me. Have you gone there yet?
Yes.
Has he gone there? You haven't. So that means.
But I can tell you.
You see, listen.
I've been there. Yeah, but
if you haven't been there, that means, for example, have you had a scan of your pancreas? pancreas.
What the fuck?
Right.
He's going to
Does
ask
your-
until he finds something that somebody
Yeah, but that's
has
the
not
point,
done.
right? It just becomes tedious. So you're just going to grant that there's certain things you believe, either for good reasons or you don't have good reasons for it. But now let's equate that with a God, right? We short circuit this because he will eventually get to something where you have to acknowledge that you haven't seen it, you don't have specific evidence for it yourself, even though there is evidence out there. But then all you have to do is turn that around and go, okay, so we have the evidence out there. Even if I don't have it, I have access to it, and there are experts and other people that have this testimony and not testimony, but evidence. Now do the same with the God claim, right? Because if it's just prolonging it, right?
And even if I say, yes, I take the existence of Indonesia on faith, what has he gained? Nothing.
Well, his view is that now you accepted something without seeing it, and he's just
Okay.
doing the same, right? Then you need to go to the
Yes.
next step and show why that's a terrible argument for his
Exactly.
God. But just grant
That's where
it,
I
right?
would
Because
like to be.
eventually,
Yeah, but that's where I want to be.
yeah, sure, but just grant the first part because you're going to have to go there anyway if you're intellectually
Yes,
honest.
'cause
And these
he's
guys
gonna
dancing
carry on,
around it
yeah,
is
exactly.
not going to help them, right?
Your
has nothing
pancreas.
to do with it.
Excuse
So we can continue to discuss
No.
about other topics.
Listen.
Have you studied quantum
This guy
physics?
knows what he's
Little bit, yeah.
But it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with it.
No, the reason I'm asking is when we want to understand and affirm the knowledge of something that yes, I'm certain. Are you certain you have a pancreas?
Okay, now he's going to certainty. Why would you go to certainty? This is a red herring, right? And it's self-defeating. Not only is it a red herring, but it's self-defeating because you just have to ask the same question. What do you believe for certain? And then you can go down the philosophical route of getting to a brain in a vat. And he's got no way to escape that. You know, God doesn't help
No,
you in that
so
scenario
what?
anyway. So it's a complete red herring and self-defeating. It's really useless in any argument. If your interlocutor knows about it, you're going to get nowhere, and you're actually going to demonstrate how you shoot yourself in one or both feet.
Probably. Yes.
Are you certain? No. Right. So you're skeptical that you have a pancreas. Do you have a heart? The actual heart, physical heart. Are you certain?
Pounding in my,
Are you
in my
are you certain it's the heart? Have you seen it?
It's a diaphragm.
No.
Exactly. You're not certain. So you're skeptical
So
that you.
Descartes.
Wait a moment, my
Yes.
friend.
You
You are
don't think that
skeptical.
That's the only
Exactly.
Please.
No.
You're
This guy knows
skeptical
what
that
he's
you have-
doing. Yeah. That's
Have a
exactly.
heart or not? You have a pancreas or not? I mean, have you had a brain scan?
No,
Yourself.
but everything is
Are you
logical.
skeptical?
If I can just take logical arguments, I can just build myself in this.
Do you see what you're doing now? Instead of bringing hard evidence, let's try to understand the level of evidence you're bringing. Your level of evidence is logical, as you said, logical evidence, assumptions through generalization, testimony. Okay, so are you absolutely certain that you have a brain? There you go. So you haven't got.
I'm not saying that I have one.
Well, how's that useful? You haven't made any substantial point there. Congratulations for making an unsubstantial point.
So I'm not wrong. So far.
Hang on. So when you're speaking to me, you really think that you haven't got a brain.
No, I just don't.
No, he just said he doesn't know for certain. That doesn't mean he thinks he doesn't have a brain. That's either disingenuous or it's a false dichotomy. The fact that you don't know that you have it for certain doesn't mean that you don't think you have one or that you're skeptical that you have one. I mean, that's terrible.
And that he was going just now, he was going straight in for the question, right in, and now he's backing off again. It's a pity. I'm talking about the tall guy. I don't know why he stopped, because he was right on track.
Yep, just grant them this and move on, and then put
And
the,
that's
put the,
exactly
put the
what he did,
position
yeah.
back on them, right? That's
Yes.
it.
What makes you think you have a brain?
I don't say I have one. I don't say I don't have one. You just asking me
Okay.
if I think.
Okay, let me ask you. Do you have a brain?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Okay, but when he says he doesn't know, what he means is he doesn't know for sure. And if he articulates that and says, but I have a high degree of confidence that I have a brain based on my consciousness or X, Y, and Z, whatever other reasons he wants to give, that's entirely fine. And the position has been justified, and you move on. But
Okay,
when he
I
says it
would
like
use a
that,
different-
they take it and run with it disingenuously. Do atheists have a brain? Right, like the comment here. And again, maybe he's not, and this is really for everybody. So it's not pointing out something about this particular fellow in general. It's more as you get experience, and we all need to learn and remember these things anyway, especially with interlocutors that have a history of taking a disingenuous or uncharitable view, summarizing your position uncharitably, When what he should do is, hey, what do you mean by you don't know? Do you mean you're just not certain, but you have a high probability? That would be an intellectually honest question, because then you can establish what he means by I don't know. But if you just take it and then try and make a fool of it, then that's being disingenuous.
I would use a different line of reasoning. I would simply say, look, if you call brain what I am using now to process your question and give you an answer, then yes, I am sure I have a brain, because that's what I'm using at the moment. And that's it.
What's your point?
So you might think that you don't have a brain, or you have a brain,
I
right?
don't know. I just said I don't know. You're repeating yourself.
No. You really think you don't know, right?
Yes.
You sound an honest answer.
Yeah.
You honestly think.
See, now it's grandstanding, right? This is being disingenuous, right? This is where now the man is not being
He's
honest.
thinking. No, Rob, he's thinking. Look, he's thinking. He doesn't know how to handle the situation.
No, all he's doing now is trying to make the guy sound like he's foolish, when in fact he should be asking the guy, what do you mean by I don't know? That's all.
Yeah.
That's what I would ask somebody. If somebody says I don't know, and I'm kind of somewhat familiar with the topic, at least to some small degree, I'm going to ask clarifying questions to understand what my opponent means by that. I'm not going to take the most uncharitable position to make it look foolish. That's what the attempt is here. And he's saying this repeatedly around the audience. You can hear the voices louder. This is to make it sound like he's not going to say the words, but he's going to infer that this guy is crazy for not believing he has a brain. And I'm sure if we went down here and had a look at the comments, it's hard to make a grown-up man seriously when he's wearing, okay, that's the Santa Claus one. I'm sure atheists can be so skeptical as to question they have a brain or not. Right? This is the sort of comments you get from, I don't know if you can see it online, maybe it's a bit small there.
No.
In conclusion, atheists can be so skeptical as to question if they have a brain or not. Right? That's the sort of comments you get when you go down this line where you want to be disingenuous.
Yeah, but he's actually stumped.
That you don't know whether you have a brain or not.
Yes.
Really? Very interesting.
You see,
So when you go,
he's never had this before. This is not part of his script. Because you don't have a person acknowledging that they don't have a brain. And this is why he doesn't know what the fuck to do. That's why I'm thinking, okay, what is my next step? I'm off script. He doesn't know what to do.
Well, I kind of think he's done something already, which is to ask the questions, really, like, are you crazy? He's not saying that, but that's the sort of question. And then the people infer that, like we have in the comments here, that atheists don't think they have a brain. That's the purpose behind this, if you go down this line. And we just don't need to go down here at all. And the only reason that he's going down there is because he doesn't want to accept that he has a brain, or allow that line of questioning to be used. But it detonates in the Muslim's face. It's just that the interlocutor doesn't necessarily know exactly how to make it detonate.
do you work or study?
I work.
Work. In your workplace, do you use your brain?
I don't know. I manage to think.
Right. So what do you use to do all this work? And
See, now it's just grandstanding and
all of a
just
sudden,
pressing
yeah.
the point. But it is the other guy's, it is the answer that the other guy's giving him that's allowing him to continue to do this, right? And so it's just a learning for all of us that you don't need to go here at all. Unless he's bringing up solipsism, in which case that's self-defeating to him. He's not going to get out of that either. So that's kind of irrelevant, really, if you're going to make an argument for knowing something. It's pretty pointless, but you'll look to the gullible audience as if you're, being slightly crazy, quote unquote, when it's not. You just need to clarify what it means. But that's the point here of this. That's what I think it is anyway. That's the point. Once you get down to this position and Mansur sees that the other guy is going to hold on to this, I'm not sure if I got a brain, he's going to press the point, ask questions to make it look like the other guy is completely stupid. And of course, that's not the case. And a couple of clarifying questions would easily show that's the case.
I would ask, do you have a brain? Just turn it around and then see if he says, well, yes, of course. And then say, okay, why do you have a brain? And then say, if he then says, well, this is what I'm using to think, then I'll say, well, if you're asking and answering like that, then I agree with you. Then I also have a brain.
But then he turns around and says, do you know for certain, right? So you just need to know how to deal with, which I'm knowing.
And then you say around, you would turn it around. Okay, are you certain that you have a brain? How certain are you? What gives you that certainty? You have the same line of reasoning available to you. You can.
Yeah, you could go that route as well, I suppose. Yeah.
My hands. I can
your
see
hands.
them.
Okay, and your hand operates through what? By itself.
I don't know how I use them.
You tell your employee you don't have a brain.
People say it's the brain that determines the
Do you
movements.
need to know if you have a brain to live?
No,
No,
because.
definitely. So you don't
No, no.
need to know if you have a brain to be able
But
to use it.
I'm interested
That's
in
the
finding out if you don't know you have a brain or not. And scientists are telling us it's the brain that actually regulates our movement and so on. So you
need
think,
to believe their testimony.
do you believe that you have a
I
brain?
don't care.
You see, he turns it around.
I can create a logical construction based on what they're saying and not assume anything in the end. Just
Yeah, this is very weak by this guy. He's not going to get anywhere like this, and all that's going to happen is he's going to the gullible people, he's going to look foolish. So this is definitely not a route that you want to go down if you end up having a conversation with a Muslim like this. But you can cut it off way before this anyway.
Just until I get a proof that it's correct or not, I can assume that it's correct or not. But if the whole logical construction is working, I can not disprove it.
So now you're bringing this question about logical credibility. If we use logical arguments, it's possible that we can accept it as an evidence. Is that what you're saying? So if someone demonstrates to you through a logical argument,
Construction can be logical and validated.
validated means you can accept it.
Doesn't mean that the basement
No.
is validated.
You say
There's a difference between validation and accepting.
validated means it's acceptable.
Acceptable if the basement is validated.
What do you mean by basement?
The basement or
The
like
premise.
the hypothesis.
The premises.
But
Okay.
if you disprove the
He's
hypothesis,
French.
the whole
I
construction
mean,
is wrong.
he doesn't
Yeah.
speak English so well, so
Yeah, that
You
could be
know.
part of it as well. There's a language barrier there.
Yeah. So can you use a logical argument that you have a brain?
yes.
So far, no.
So far, no.
Die and look into my own
Right.
head, skull.
So all your
he's
everyday
thinking about
life,
the
because you
physical.
must have studied, right,
okay.
in school and in university, wherever, right? And then you never once thought that I may have a brain.
I may have, but it's as you said,
But you don't
it's
know.
only generalization.
So you don't know.
I've seen a brain in the human skull. Sure. I cannot prove that I have the same in my skull. I can just assume that I give it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just, like we say, you just don't need to go down this route.
Literal,
You're sort of stringing yourself up by a noose here that you're not going to be able to get out of, in a sense. So this is not good by the guy that's interacting here.
That it's the higher,
Okay.
the most likely.
Let me ask you another very silly question. Are you certain that you exist?
This is an interesting question.
That's what I said.
As soon as you hear the word certain, if you're listening to us talking and commenting on this video, as soon as you hear the word certain, that's an immediate red flag. Now, for some of us that have been doing this for a little while, I mean, that's just like it's second nature red flag. But if you're new to doing this or you haven't had that many discussions and somebody asks you, are you certain, that immediately should be a red flag. And that now you need to discuss what certainty means. And can you actually have certainty about external propositions? Especially propositions like a God exists or my brain exists or whatever the case is. And you'll quickly get to the cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I exist, that sort of thing, at the lowest level. But that is completely unhelpful for either side. So that's not really, there's no point in going there. And they can't get out of by claiming that God has shown them it's not. They couldn't get out of solipsism in that way, even though a few have tried. So it's really completely unhelpful. You can talk about it for a few minutes as a matter of interest, but after that, it's not going to help either side to go that route. Unless somebody is claiming certainty. If they are claiming certainty, well, then you could take them down that route to show them that it's very likely that what they claim is certain is in fact not certain. But most people are not claiming certainty, at least if they understand what the term means.
3 months over summer in London. I would have such fun going to a speaker's corner every Sunday.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. You'd have to go in disguise or whatever the case is, right? But it would be fun, I'm sure. But then again, you've got a very short temper, so I don't know how long you would, not temper, but like in a time when you hear a lot of things that you think are bollocks. So I'm not sure how, you'd probably get through a lot of them in a couple of weeks and there'd be nobody left to talk to unless it was new people. So, and then they'd scare them away. Don't go near that guy, he's an Islamophobe. That sort of thing, right?
And a
That's the
hater,
tactic
yeah.
nowadays.
And a racist, yeah.
Yes, all of that stuff.
It's silly, but it's interesting. Are you certain you exist?
Oh my God! Oh fuck!
No, maybe as Elon Musk said, we're maybe just a big simulation.
Yeah, it could be a brain in a jar, right?
What kind of way
In
of
a
thinking
museum,
is
it could be a brain in a jar.
Do you think you sound rational?
No, it's not
I mean, how can anyone take you
Oh,
seriously?
speaking of which, I need to get a beer.
brain in the jar.
Rob, you're getting me into alcoholics again.
Well, I'm not doing that, am I? You're choosing to do it, so it's your responsibility, but enjoy it. Okay, but now you listen to the thug on the left-hand side, right? This guy is a known thug. And again, doesn't have too many brain cells to rub together. But that's the impression that people like that have. Not that you necessarily want to impress people like that. I'm not sure they could be impressed. But it just doesn't give you good optics to go down this route of, I don't know if I exist, I don't know if I've got a brain and all of that. You need to be more clear on that, cut it off before then, or be clear on what you mean by that. And then, it doesn't look perhaps quite as silly to the gullible.
But you're not ready to achieve. I mean, do you live your life like this, in oblivious? Like you don't know anything.
Not knowing.
Do you feel good about this, like thinking of this? Is it a good way of thinking?
Does it give you peace and tranquility in your heart?
Well, this is an appeal to emotion now, right? No point in having that in a rational argument. You're throwing water, throwing oil into water as if the two will mix. Obviously they won't. So don't bring in emotional. And this often gets slipped in by people that either know this or don't realize that they're doing. Hey, how do you feel? What does that make you feel? Right? That's just an appeal to emotion.
Being that kind of hyper skeptical, does it give you?
Yeah, the guy over here with the cap on, right? This former Iranian Shia who became a Sunni is probably one of the most radical thugs in Speaker's Corner, right? He's lashed out at people. He's been in altercations and so forth, and he doesn't have two brain cells to rub together, but he's very loud and brash. Accused me of X, Y, and Z, whatever the case is as well. So, a bit of a thug, this fellow.
Give you this tranquility in your heart, who you are, what you hear, what are you doing?
It's because I can build myself on this logical assumption. So far, if you ground hypothesis, I'm just asking for you ground hypothesis that makes you believe.
Are you not certain you exist or not? It could be just an illusion.
Yeah, are you certain that you exist?
Well, I've just got to practice a little bit more of the South African accent that you have, be a little bit more short-tempered, just learn a bit more about the Quran, and then I can go in Speaker's Corner with that mask on and maybe pretend I'm you.
So I've been
I am
answering
certain.
all your questions.
I am
right,
certain.
why?
Yeah. It's not about why, I am certain.
Okay, so you were answering question for like 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
No, it's my turn. Why are you sure you exist?
So you want to know. So you want to know from me. Hang on. You want to know from me why I'm certain.
You can take it.
Next.
Yeah, that's a shame you let him off the hook there, right? How's he going to claim that he knows for certain that he exists? He can't. And if he tries to, it'll be detrimental to him. It'll detonate in his face to anybody that knows how to show him that's not the case. So it's a shame that he walked away there.
He's just making
The
inroads.
level of hyper skepticism.
See, now it's just a summary of, hey, they won't believe anything. I don't think that's a great way for us to go in it, and it's not necessary. And like you say, whatever standard they're going to try and impart on us, we can reverse that standard on them, and it's going to look even worse. So there we go, guys. Sorry the first video wasn't all that good. Even this one wasn't
I'm sorry
great.
the second was worse.
There is even another one here, but I don't know whether people want to stick around for, goodness gracious, another one. I'm not sure that stops and I do. I mean, there's another 50-minute one that we have here. We could go through some of that if people really wanted to. Because we only normally start at this time, don't we, Stops? So.
Next should be the Hamza one.
Which one is that?
The Sunday.
The 4-hour one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to do a bit more on that one there first. I need to get through some
No,
stuff
but
on that.
why do you need to prepare everything? You've broken it down.
Yeah, I think the reason is because certain of those claims are just require something on the internet to show a few of them, because there's some nuance there that can easily be missed. Otherwise, it's just our word against theirs, and all we need to do is bring some information up on screen, and that'll do the trick. So that's why I'd rather get that done. Seen from I'm Stop spamming. No, yeah, exactly. But you'd have to have the South African accent. So pay attention to how Stop speaks. Start practicing in the mirror, and then come down to Speaker's Corner with I'm not Stop spamming.
I don't have a South African accent.
You do, my bro. You do still, definitely.
I
Well,
lost
do
it
as well.
10 years
We
ago.
both do.
I lost it 10 years ago.
All right. So in the comments there, give us a 1 if you want us to continue with another Mansur. If you've had enough of Mansur and you're happy to go to bed now, then just give us a 2 and we'll know. So a 1 if you want us to continue, or a 2.
Two.
Because normally we only start about half an hour before this one. So we're early tonight. And we could do another one. But if you're tired and you know your voice is going and you're getting a little bit dry mouth, stops.
Clearly is my goodness. I can't even say that number.
What's that?
All
What
the wall
number?
says 2.
What number can't you say?
The one that did this one. Say that number, please.
Which number? Sorry, I'm looking now. Sorry, which number stops?
On the screen.
Oh, no. Let's just do it short like that. All right, so it looks like, because I want an after show. Okay, so Pierre doesn't want to, but he's been outnumbered by everybody else. All right, tell you what, we'll go on for about half an hour, see how far we get with this other one. If there's not much of value in the first 10 or 15 minutes, we'll give it a skip. So if you're up for it, stops about half an hour more. See how we get on.
Let's go and do it then.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Is this the right one? Yes, it is. Okay.
What did I do the other day when I did? There was a video when, who was it by? When he went, and I did a posh British accent. I can't remember who it was that I was mocking.
All right, let's get to it. I don't know either. Right, let's
I was
do
so proud
a
of
little bit
myself.
of this. 3 videos in one night.
Oh my God. Oh, which God?
No, no. Well, that is a form of reality. Whatever we observe is reality, yes.
Yeah, but you can't say it doesn't make because it doesn't make sense. Because does it make sense? It's a dual nature.
Oh, yes, we can. We can definitely say it doesn't make sense. That is the basis of science. We say we observe stuff. This doesn't make sense. Let's do another experiment to try and figure out what on earth is going on.
So just because you say it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't mean it's true. Just because it doesn't make sense to you, it doesn't mean it's true. And in existence.
You mean just because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean it's not true. I think that's what you meant to say there.
Well, true is a funny thing, because true is something I think that is personal, because I think it depends on the level of knowledge that you have, whether something appears to be true to you or not. So people who thought 5,000 years ago that the center of the Earth, universe is Earth, and it's stable and static and flat and everything, they were not lying, because this was their level of knowledge. They didn't have any other way. So for them, this was true. So I think truth is rather personal. It's only when you start bringing up facts and reality that it becomes a fact as such that can be shared between others. I think this is how it works.
Yeah, well, I think there's a difference between ontology, what's the nature of things, and epistemology. How do we come to understand what things are? And so I think there are ontological truths out there. Our ability to know them, that's always what's in question. To what degree can we have a high probability or approach certainty in knowing about the world around us? And that's always been a deep philosophical question for thousands of years, I guess. Right, let's go on.
It doesn't make it false.
Yeah, I wouldn't say true, I would say false in that situation.
It doesn't make it false.
So, technically though, you're the one making the claim that the turtle outside the universe. You would have to present me
No, what I'm saying, anything outside the universe, how can you discredit it? Anything.
Okay, good. What? Thank you. I'll answer that question. So he's asking, if something's outside the universe, how do you discredit it? Well, we can discredit it if it has impacted this universe. If it's simply outside this universe and has not interacted within this universe, then we can't discredit it. But equally, you can't demonstrate it in any way. And if something is undetectable, then what's the difference between something being undetectable and something not existing? And for you as somebody who believed, if that were your standard, you'd have to say there's no way you could demonstrate it. There's no difference. It could just as easily not exist as be undetectable. But if it has interacted in this world, then we can. So that would be my short answer.
Okay. I would ask, what is outside of this universe? How can you, as a
you just speak for a moment, I'll be right back.
how can you as a person go and make the claim that there is something outside of the universe when you don't have anything outside of the universe? What you're doing is you're defining something as being outside. But what is outside? What is inside? What is inside the universe? What is outside the universe? So these are all questions that you can't really, ask even, because there is no answer. So I don't quite understand why theists in general, whether there are theists in general, not everybody does. Some say, well, yeah, this God is outside, so it's not detectable, but it brings some sort of demands on us inside the universe, and I don't understand how that works. I cannot see. I mean, we go and we say we have several universes, but these are mathematical constructs. These are not physical. This is not something that we can imagine, that we can go and put our heads around and say, okay, this universe, I can't even say the universe is expanding. What is it expanding into? I know that it's not a real question because the universe is the universe and there is nothing outside the universe that it is expanding into. And this is, for me, a huge challenge to be able to accept that the universe does not expand into anything because it is the universe. So this is
it's
already
a hard one,
a challenge for me
to kind of work out.
You have no basis for it. You have no evidence to discredit what's outside because you have no way of knowing what's outside.
But equally, the same applies to you, right?
Yes,
so
yeah.
that doesn't help you.
All of that will be your suspicion, your educated guesses, and your speculations. So science.
But again, right, just a reminder, we don't want to be talking about deist gods. We want to be talking specifically about a God that you believe in. Anything else is irrelevant. You tell us what you believe in, and if that God is interacting in this world, then yes, we can, in principle, disprove it. If the claims that it interacted are shown to not be the case, and you are of the view that if the claims are shown not to be the case, you would believe the God does not exist. If that's the case, if that's your position, which I think it should be, then yes, we could disprove it to your satisfaction and ours.
Science, if you use that tool, you would not be able to arrive to this answer. That's the limitation of it.
I mean, that's just not true. I've given detail on why that's not true. So you're kind of going over the same.
You gave an example of how some radiations, whatever, they are the originating forces before the universe. Our universe didn't start with nothingness.
How do you know that?
Well, firstly, we don't know whether our universe, quote, started or whether it's past eternal, i.e. it's always existed. But even if it did start, we don't know specifically the start. But you and I have, Mansur, apparently, have both read Lawrence Krauss's book, A Universe from Nothing. And if that's the case, then a universe can be generated from quantum vacuum, which is inherently unstable. And according to Krauss, given enough time, a universe will pop. It's not as if there's a probability. It is guaranteed to happen at some point within an amount of time, especially if the time is either infinite or near infinite, then a universe will be created from the unstable quantum vacuum. So to suggest that's why you've got to ask what he means by nothing, right? I asked him this question once in Speaker's Corner, and he tried to equate it with the question that he asked me was, what do rocks dream about? And I said, that's an incoherent question. Rocks don't dream. I knew where he was going to go to, right?
Of course.
What do they dream about? Nothing. Oh, that's what I mean. No. That's just a concept. And then I tried to explain to him that, even if we grant, that was a poor example, but even if I want to grant you that you have this concept of, quote, absolute nothing, you now have to demonstrate that it's even possible in reality. Not just that it's a word that you can use to describe something that is, that you can conceptualize, but is that concept even possible in reality? And then we go to your particular reality and suggest, well, is it possible there? And I would say, no, it's not. So that idea I just don't take seriously.
And this is why I'm so very proud of the construct that I made, where I said, well, if God created everything, he also created nothing. So God created nothing. And what worships God? Well, nothing worships God. Go and prove me wrong.
Yeah. Current universe.
Yeah. How can you know that?
Can nothingness generate something?
Yes,
What is nothingness?
There you go. What is nothingness? Let's agree on what nothingness is first. Otherwise, we're going to go around the houses like we've seen in the other videos. Got to get, with these Muslim apologists, you've got to get a definition on the table and then discuss it until you agree or you disagree, and then you move on to another point or topic.
The absence of stuff.
How can the absence of stuff generate stuff?
I just explained, right? All you have to do is read Lawrence Krauss's book, and that's entirely not only plausible, but quite possible,
Compelling.
if not probable.
Yeah.
From 0, you can get -1 and +1.
No. If I have in my wallet,
Okay. Ooh, alert. Ding, 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 red flag. Muslims going to an analogy. You are 99.9 recurring % sure this analogy is going to be disanalogous. Either you interrupt them immediately or you let them go with it, and then you just explain why it's disanalogous.
£0, 0 penny.
Yeah.
Can I give you 20 quid?
Yes, you can go into debt.
If I have no money in your wallet, can I physically give you this money?
Okay, now unfortunately this guy's going to dance around the picture as well. You just got to grant him no, right? And then point out that that is disanalogous. You don't need to go down the route of trying to defend this view that you can still be given something if there isn't anything in this silly analogy. Just grant the analogy is silly, it's disanalogous to the universe, and therefore doesn't apply, boom, you're done. But unfortunately he's not going to do that, and he's going to fall a little bit into the same as the previous guy.
No, you
Money.
can't, but your wallet is not the universe. Finished.
Correct.
Oh, you can't physically. If you don't have anything in your pocket, yes.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Well, you can give me
I have
some.
no friends.
You can give me
I have
20
no
pounds.
banks.
Okay.
Yeah, no one to borrow from. Because all I have is nothing. My wallet has no money. That's nothing. No money. Can I give you any money?
Yes, you can go into debt.
Where can I get this money from?
With friends somewhere.
I said I have no money. I have no friends. I have no bank. I have nowhere to borrow it.
In that specific situation, no, you can't. You can't go into debt.
I said I have nowhere to borrow from. To borrow from means borrow something that is existing.
Yeah.
That was a nothing then. The question is, can you get something from nothing?
We should do that video at some point.
That you can't get something from nothing. I have
That's a
no reason to
classic.
think that. I have no evidence for one.
How do you describe something coming from absolute nothingness when there is no something? You see, to get some energy from nothingness, this nothing doesn't have any energy. In itself, you can borrow it. Borrow it from what? From another nothingness? That nothingness doesn't have any energy.
Can you just pause a second? I need to point out that nothing has 3 different areas, very, very different areas, because you can have the layman nothing, you can have the philosophical nothing, and you have the cosmological nothing. Those are 3 very, very different things. So if you're speaking about the cosmological nothing, in other words, if you go to outer space and you go to interstellar space and you go there where there's absolutely no more molecules, no more nothing left, then you still have the quantum fields. And this is the problem. This is what we call nothing. This is what Krauss was trying to point out, that even if we remove every single particle from a cubic, meter of space, you still have quantum form. So nothing is relative in cosmological terms. In philosophical terms is different, and in layman terms is different. So you need to specify which kind of nothing you're talking about. And if you want to know about the philosophical nothing, I recommend you go and look up Tracy Harris, how she goes and defines that.
Hopefully this fellow's trolling. We can only hope.
Because, we're showing up Mansur so bad at the moment. I feel sorry for the guy.
From what? From another nothingness? That nothingness has no energy. So where are you going to borrow from?
It's mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense.
No, it's not making sense. Where are you going to borrow from? There's absolutely nothingness.
Where doesn't make sense? Because there is nothing. So there's no where and
Right,
place.
so that means you cannot get it from anywhere.
No, it doesn't.
Sorry?
It doesn't apply that.
Hang on.
No.
Look, this is why the Quran is actually very specific in dealing with the atheists.
Here we go. Okay, it's like, hopefully as people are listening to our critiques and stuff, we're training all of ourselves to hear certain words and then to deal with it, right? Now, Stops and I wouldn't, monkey about with this stuff. We just get straight to the point much quicker than this. But now he's volunteered the Quran and what the Quran says. Boom. Now, again, this stops, and I love this part. If you're not sure about this, right, then you obviously you're not going to be able to critique it. But as soon as somebody goes to the Quran, it's like, okay, show me the verse, or what does it say, or why do you believe that, right? Now he's offering evidence. He's now giving up the baton, in a sense. You've got to grab the baton, because if you don't, he's tossing it up. He's going to grab it back again. It's floating in midair. You've got to grab the baton now and start. Oh, you're talking about the Quran. So how do you define it? Why should I believe that? Where does it say this? Blah blah blah. Right?
The Quran says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ
That's
أَمْ
fabulous.
خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ.
Okay, well, that's nice, pointing at the sky and giving us a nice little tune in Arabic. I'm not sure that that's going to help the scientific argument there.
أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Were they created from nothingness? أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Did they create them their own selves? أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Did they create the heaven and the earth? بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. They have no certainty of faith. They're not certain. So,
Okay, but nobody's certain. So that's a trivial point. If your God is supposed to be making that point, that's a trivial point. I wouldn't expect a God to do that. So you've now given me evidence against your God. You're not doing very well to start with here. If this is supposed to convince me, then pointing out a trivial point isn't very convincing.
And this is the problem. Because if you know your stuff, you can immediately bury them and they will run away like crazy. Like what Hamza is doing at the moment. He's running away as fast as he can. This is what Hamza Tsorsis did. This is what Imran Hussein did. This is what Subur did. This is what all these guys did. As soon as they realize you know your stuff, at least you know Islam, they will run away like crazy. That's the point, yeah.
can you originate, can you produce, can you manufacture from absolute nothingness? The answer is no. You say yes.
Okay, well, that doesn't help you, though, because you claim that God created the universe from nothing. So you've just refuted your own point. And I've given the analogy. I've walked a couple of Muslims through this. So that's self-defeating. So if you're going to claim that something can't come from absolute nothingness, well, then you've obviously defeating your claim where God created something from nothing. Be and it is.
Be and it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I'm doing with Redbeard Hamza at the moment. Okay, but I should have put the ding, 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 ding bell. I didn't do that. But that's, yeah. And it's fun for a while, but do you know that it actually gets boring? You know, when you listen to 9 videos of the same thing and you see the same mistakes and everything, it really gets so repetitive. It's mind-numbing.
I want to know.
No, I say I don't know. I see no reason.
I say I know.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, that's exactly
how do you
the
know?
problem.
What do you mean by no, and how do you know? Boom, now we're off and running, right? He's volunteered it. You need to grab it with both hands when you get the chance. If you're not that experienced at directing the conversation, if you're given a gap, you've got to jump on it with both hands.
Yeah, but you've got no evidence.
My evidence is absolute nothingness is the absence of anything.
Yeah.
So you cannot get thing from something that is not even there.
And what's your evidence?
I just told you.
No, that would be a circular argument. If that's your evidence, that's a circular argument. It's the case because I'm saying it's the case.
A thing to come has to come from something. It cannot from
within the universe, yes,
anywhere.
I agree
It
with
cannot come from something which is not even existent. Existence cannot come from non-existence.
That's your claim. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I disagree. You're making a
Okay.
claim. You're making a claim.
Hang on.
You need to provide some evidence.
Are you suggesting existence?
Okay, you see, he slightly said it incorrect. When you say I disagree, the Muslim guy is now going to turn around and say, hang on a moment, you disagree with me. Why? What's your evidence that I'm wrong? Instead, so it's you've got to be careful sometimes how you respond. Instead of saying I disagree, because we all disagree with virtually everything that the Muslim guys say, but instead of saying that, just ask them, why do you say that? What's your evidence for that? Because the moment you disagree, now the tables will be turned and you have to provide it, and they're off the hook, and they get away with this far too regularly. We shouldn't be allowing that.
Existence can come from nothingness, from non-existence, based on what?
No, I'm not suggesting it, okay?
That's why you disagreed with me.
No, there's a really, really clear, important distinction. I'm not saying one way or the other.
What are you saying?
I'm saying I don't know.
You don't know.
You're saying it's impossible.
Why don't you know?
Because science hasn't developed to that extent.
Science has.
But then if you say
Nothing.
Science
Okay.
Science,
Have you?
Science is not.
Did he say science has? Did I hear that correctly?
Science
I was looking
has,
at
yes,
the,
I heard that.
okay, the text.
But this
Okay,
was somebody
now-
else.
that's a massive claim. Okay, now demonstrated. Now he's going to cherry pick his favorite cosmologist or cosmological theory. As long as you know that there's one that says the opposite, then you provide that and say, hang on a moment, but here's the one that says the universe is past eternal or it created itself or whatever the case is. And now, where are you going to go with that? You've said, and all you need is an opposite version of that. There's no consensus on this matter. And that's even more devastating because anybody can cherry pick something that agrees with their position. But is there a consensus? And if there is a consensus, is that consensus based on a consensus of evidence, which is normally how scientific consensus is arrived at? And if that isn't the case, now you've got a much harder job of taking one or other position.
Science is all about observation, right? Have we observed in our scientific labs something coming from absolute nothingness?
No.
Right. So what can we conclude then?
We can conclude that within the universe,
Within our scientific method,
within
with our scientific tools that we have,
He's
nothing
answering his own question.
cannot give rise to something.
yes.
Depending on what you mean by nothing. The Casimir effect has demonstrated that virtual particles can come into, quote, existence from a quantum vacuum. But they're going to claim, well, that's not really nothing. So, again, you've got to pin them down on what it means to be nothing. Absence of,
Exactly.
of matter and energy, well, yes, that can give rise to something.
But I like how he's asking the question, and before the guy can answer, he gives his own answer, which obviously is the wrong answer. So this just doesn't.
Yeah, but that helps him continue
is
his point along,
futile.
right, without the other guy getting in there. But you can see, guys, as we talk about this, whoever's listening, it becomes an art form to have a conversation with somebody, especially live. But the more you do it like this, the more you learn and stuff. And the only way to do this, if you want to, is to have conversation with people. You'll make mistakes, we all have. And hopefully you look over and go, okay, what could I have done differently there? If I'm actually mistaken, I need to acknowledge that. But if I'm not, and somebody pulled the wool over my eyes or pulled a fallacy that I missed, how do I identify that in future? Because you will most often come across that. It's rare in my experience, and again, not all theists are like that. But my anecdotal evidence is that most theists are either arguing either in poor faith or they just don't know how to argue well. I'm not saying that's all. There may be a few that aren't like that. But in my experience, they are like that. And so the better you are at identifying these things and keeping it on track, the better the conversation will go, the more you can keep it fine-tuned.
Within the universe, we can conclude, therefore, that things do not come from nothing.
Right. So how can
We're
you...
talking about the origin of the universe.
I'm saying this universe that we are describing, it could not have come from nothing.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying this,
What's that?
I just asked, why not?
anything else you see,
Yeah.
you can make a generalization.
This is a logical fallacy.
Generalization is a logical fallacy.
No, what you're doing is
It's a logical fallacy only when you make it into something that doesn't make sense.
it's the fallacy of composition. It's saying people have personalities, atoms make up people, therefore atoms have personalities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good example, right? What Mansur is doing is saying, hey, everything in the universe comes from something else. Therefore, it's logical to conclude the universe came from something else. But that isn't the case, and this is what the guy's pointing out, fallacy of composition. It's very different to say the parts of the universe and the universe itself. I think they've reversed it around, but the analogy still holds.
Not the case.
No, let me explain why that is what you're doing. You're saying that because within the universe, the composite bits and pieces of the universe have always had a antecedent thing, they've come from something. You're saying therefore the universe.
Okay. Can anything in this universe come from nothingness?
That's a fallacy. Sorry?
Can anything within this universe come from nothingness?
I've already said no.
Why not?
Because we observe this to be the case. Science tells us that.
Yeah, but that's an irrelevant question. If he's already said
Exactly.
no, that's all you need, right? And that's what you want him to say anyway. Then to ask why not, I think, is entirely irrelevant. You move on.
So science tells us everything in this universe, it cannot come from nothingness.
So why did you
what
ask him the
generalization
question?
you're making?
I can generalize to the extent of the universe, the contents of the universe.
Yeah.
I cannot generalize past that.
Correct.
I can't then say...
No,
therefore
no,
the
hang on.
What can
You need to be careful here as well. You cannot say the contents of the universe because you have not looked at the entire contents of the universe. You can only talk about what we have observed so far in the universe. You need to be specific here as well.
Sure. Yeah, we can infer that from what we've seen, everything that we know of requires an antecedent cause or needs something to bring
That's
it
how
bring
you
it
need
about.
to word
Sure.
it, but you need to be careful with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you not?
What can I not want?
Why can you not?
Because that would be the fallacy of composition.
If something requires something else for it to bring into existence,
He's now repeating himself.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. He's not answering or rebutting. He just thinks that if he repeats the question, he repeats his claim again. That's somehow an answer to the critique, and it isn't. You've got to say something else. But again, to people who are watching, because he's repeating himself, they go, "Wow, he did a great job. He answered him." No, if you watch it back, the guy had a valid critique, and Mansur just repeats himself as if that's somehow going to be a rebuttal, because the critique was against this before. So saying it again isn't an answer to the critique.
into existence, if the universe is something, why doesn't it require something else to bring to existence?
Because we've got no evidence, we've done no experiments on creating universes.
There you go. Perfect.
You've already observed the universe.
Yeah.
If you already observed the content of the universe,
The
that
contents.
everything within this universe, it cannot come into.
Yeah, as we've said, right? It's
And
just
you're repeating and
himself now.
repeating the same thing, but you don't understand that you're making a mistake. You're making the mistake. If I push a button, the radio comes on inside the car, but that does not mean I can push a button and that will create the car. Those are two different things.
Into existence from absolute nothingness. Correct. So, if the universe itself is something, the whole universe itself, because parts of the universe requires
Yes, you've said it
to come
50
from
million
something
times.
else.
Jesus.
Within the universe, yes.
The universe itself is something. How do you then postulate that the universe can come from nothingness?
You don't.
Okay, well, that's already begging the question, because we don't have to even go to it from nothing. We don't know the origin. So it either it's past eternal, or if it came into existence some way, we're uncertain of how it came into existence, and it depends on what you mean by nothing. So there's a lot to unpack there.
I have no reason to say one way or the other.
How can you
Okay, that's the best answer you can give. I don't know one way or the other. And don't be
Exactly.
swayed by that. What I did when I first started to do this in Speaker's Corner is go with a past eternal universe. And I present the evidence, which they wouldn't accept, and then it'll be me against them, right? And then it looks like nobody's won anything. But actually, the stronger position is the, which I think is the most accurate position, is that we are undecided, given that the experts are not, there's no consensus. But hang on a moment, Mr. Muslim, you are making a positive claim one way or the other. What's your evidence that the vast majority of cosmologists are unaware of that should persuade them in your direction? Now the claim is, now they are in a much weaker position, because if we don't do that, it looks like it's 50-50, and that's not the case. Unless you're going to go with one option, but then, in my view, you're going to be in the same sort of position as them. You're not really going to be able to demonstrate it in any significant or substantial way.
postulate it can come from nothingness?
No, I'm saying I don't know.
Can you postulate it come from nothingness?
You can postulate anything you want. Yes.
No. If you say you can say the universe can come from nothingness, this something can come from nothingness based on what?
Oh, no, it's going into infinite regress.
If you say the sum total of everything in this universe, which is also something, how can it come from nothingness?
No, I don't think it did. I think everything did.
Can you say it came from nothingness?
Okay, you see, as Stops is saying, he's repeating himself here. The guy just needs to stay on his same position. I'm undecided about potential universal origins. End of story. Because what he might end up doing is committing to one side or the other. Now there's a burden on him to demonstrate his position. And Mansur, who's making the claim that the universe had a beginning, has got out of having to demonstrate that claim.
Can science say it can come from nothingness?
But science doesn't know everything.
Well, yes, actually, the science does show that it's entirely possible that it can come from nothingness, in the sense of Lawrence Krauss's nothingness. You can disagree with that, but then again, you have to demonstrate why you don't accept that nothingness, and you'd have to demonstrate why I should accept your conceptual idea of absolute nothingness. So you're doubly burdened by that. It's not a route you really want to go down, and I know it's not a route that you could actually answer sufficiently anyway, so we're probably here all kinds of tactics being involved at that stage. But if I ever get to speak to Mansur online or something, I can always try that, and you can listen into how there won't be a substantial response.
Within the universe, everything has come from something. But you can't generalize that to the actual universe. That is the fallacy of composition.
Hang on. So if the universe itself is something, what is so special about this universe that it can come from nothingness?
Just explained it to you.
There's only two options, my friend. Only two.
What do you mean by
Okay,
what do you mean by special?
let's talk about it. There's only two options. I'll tell you.
It's very rare.
No. It's not a rare event. There's only two options. The universe, either it came from absolute nothingness, or it didn't come from nothingness, it came from something.
Okay.
It's another alternative. Good.
No, okay, carry on.
So let's take the example of, can it come from absolute nothingness?
Okay, but hang on a moment. That's a false dichotomy, because you haven't demonstrated that it in fact could even come from, quote, absolute nothingness. That's just a concept you have. So why should we accept that, right? So got to be again quite careful here, because that dichotomy I wouldn't accept to begin with. I'm going to challenge the absolute nothingness, and I'm going to challenge him to demonstrate that it's even possible in reality, not just as a concept.
But the dichotomy is it from nothing or not from nothing? And the dichotomy is correct.
Yeah, but he said absolute nothingness, right? That's the word that,
that's a
we've got to catch.
different story.
Yeah,
okay, but
that's the one.
if you go from either from nothing or not from nothing, then that is a correct dichotomy.
Yes,
And
but the not from nothing has got various options, right? So you're absolutely right. That is a true dichotomy.
Correct.
Yeah. But we just got to catch him on the absolute nothingness bit, because that's a claim that he hasn't demonstrated, and I wouldn't accept. And I haven't in Speaker's Corner when I've tried to have this conversation.
Everything we see tells us nothingness cannot generate anything.
Okay,
but that's an argument from personal incredulity, and that's an argument from ignorance, right? It's everything we see. Okay, but that doesn't mean that it's not possible. And all the other guy is saying is that it's possible. Either you're saying that it's impossible or you're improbable. Again, you've got to nail down, Mansur. Is it impossible or just improbable? Because if it's impossible, all we need to demonstrate is that it's possible, and he's been refuted. If he's saying improbable or probable, okay, well, how do we determine that, right? Still, he's got to provide the methodology by which we can go around this. But presumably, he and others like him will say, no, it's impossible. I hope, I'm suggesting they would. It could be that they're slightly better than that, in the sense that they go, no, I think it's more probable. But now you go down a balance of probabilities, right?
Then you're in a strong position to conclude the universe could not come from absolute
That is
nothingness.
false. You cannot do that.
Why is it false?
Because it's a fallacy of composition. You just need to read about that. You're saying,
Tell me why it's false.
because you're drawing a conclusion that you may not draw. You're saying, because of the things that I observe within the universe, it is therefore true of the universe. You cannot do that.
So basically you're saying it is possible that the universe can come from absolute nothingness.
Correct.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, based on what?
Based on having no evidence one way or the other.
Okay, so that's where he's made a slight mistake. Originally, he was undecided. He's now taken a position that it can come from absolute nothingness. But then he said, and then his answer is, because we don't know one way or the other, that sort of doesn't follow either. So you've got to be a bit careful with this. You've got to keep a consistent position. And I think the consistent one is, we're undecided. That's it. There's nothing more that they can do. They now have to take a position, and they have to defend that.
If you say it is possible the universe could come from absolute nothingness, wait.
That it's possible.
If you say it's possible, now tell me, reason with me, how is it possible?
I don't have to tell you that.
No, give me a reason.
That's like saying,
Give me a reason. Why do you think it's reasonable to even think that the universe can come from absolute nothingness?
See, that's why you got to catch it in the beginning.
He just didn't exclude it.
Yeah, but you got to catch in the beginning. The absolute nothingness, the absolute part is the key. Once you accept that the universe can come from, quote, nothingness, and then it depends on what you mean by nothingness, no problem, right? But if you allow the absolute nothingness claim in, now the burden is very heavy on you, and it shouldn't be, because the burden shouldn't be on him to show that concept can in fact exist in reality. He hasn't done that, but now he's saddled the other guy with the burden of trying to show how the universe could come from absolute nothingness. And that's a very difficult burden for somebody to do.
No, you can't.
Reasonableness comes in when you start to make a claim, an assertion
Two options.
that it did come from something.
I take the option that it could not come from nothingness.
Okay, notice what he said there. It couldn't come from nothingness. He's changed it from absolute nothingness to nothingness. Right? It's subtle, but you just got to catch these things, and these guys do it a lot. Now, and you might think that it's what's the word, nitpicking, but it's actually very important. That particular words there, when you drop the nothing, the absolute, now nothingness can be defined in a particular way. When it's absolute, that's a philosophical term. When it's just nothingness, that's very likely, if you take the Krauss view, that's a scientific term. So there's a changing or shifting of the goalposts here, but it's very subtle and very quick, not easy to notice.
And you take the option that it can. So tell me your reason.
No, I'm saying that we don't know. That's all I'm saying. You're saying that you know.
Okay, look.
I'm saying what's your evidence?
Look, two options, right?
Yeah.
Only two options.
I agree.
Right.
This, and I agree with that.
If you don't think that it is not the first option, that it can come from nothingness, yeah? Look, only two options. Let me take one option. It has to come from something. You take the other option. Now, give me your reasons why the other option is...
Okay, but he's putting a burden on him that he didn't hold, right? His position was, I'm undecided, or words to that effect, right? Now he's saying, you take the other position. No, he's not required to take the other position. All he's required to do is provide some response. And if that response is, I'm undecided, and you take the response, no, the universe can't come from nothing, now you need to demonstrate how it's impossible, depending on your terminology for nothingness, right? So you've got to be careful here. He's now saddling him with a burden that he didn't originally have. And unfortunately, the other guy now has sort of accepted that burden, and now he's arguing the opposite point. He doesn't have to do that, unless he believes it, of course.
But the thing is that he's changed it again now, because now suddenly you're saying it comes from something, not nothing. So he's changed it.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that, yeah.
Absolutely not. I'm not taking a position. I'm saying I don't know.
There are only two options.
Okay, there we go. He's gone back to I don't know. He just needs to stick with that.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's two options. It's true that there's a dichotomy. Either the universe came from nothing or absolute nothing, depending on which one you're going to try and stick with, or it didn't. That's the dichotomy.
Yes.
But then your position on that, your epistemic position, is either I accept the claim, I reject the claim, or I'm undecided. So you can have three positions on any particular ontological claim.
But
Epistemology and
Mansur
ontology are
doesn't
two different things,
Yeah.
and you can have any one of those three positions. He's taken the position I don't know, which I agree with. That's the position I would take. You just need to stick with that. Now the burden is on Mansur to take a different position, and why he does that.
It could have come from something. It could have been God.
No,
but I don't know.
Look,
And you don't know that.
look, it could have come from something,
Yes.
and it could have come from nothingness. Now give me the reasons that it could have come from nothingness.
I don't have to.
No, he doesn't have to. Okay, good. He's answered that.
You just said it could have, and yet you are unable to reason. I've given my reason, you call it a logical fallacy of composition. Now give me your reason.
A tree could have red leaves, blue leaves.
No,
I don't need
give me your reason. No, give me a reason.
You see, he keeps pressing him on this. If you're undecided, the reason is because the scientific community is not decided on this point. The consensus doesn't weigh one way or lean one way or the other. That's all you have to do. Boom, you have discharged your warrant for being undecided. End of story. Nothing else needs to be done. But he's pressing him here, and the guy needs to be strong on, hey, I'm undecided, but he needs to give a reason why he's undecided. That part he needs to do. He needs to make it firm and clear and just keep repeating it. That's it.
Your reason.
Because the green light is reflected back, because the energy from the sun is in the red and the blue, and that gets absorbed.
Okay, so
And the
this
green
guy's
light doesn't get
talking
much
complete
energy, so
nonsense. I don't know what he's talking about.
That's why trees have green leaves.
Yeah, I have given my reason, which you discount as calling a logical fallacy of composition. Give me your reason for your so-called possibility. It is possible that the universe comes from nothing.
No, that's not his position. Would you stop straw manning him or misunderstanding? His position is he's undecided. All he said it's possible, but it's possible either way. So he doesn't have to give a reason either way. All he has to say is that I'm undecided, and here's my reason for undecided. That's it.
Go ahead, give me a reason.
It's possible because I can say the sentence. All I need to do is say something that makes sense. The universe can come from nothing.
Show
It can
me
come from something.
with some reason.
I don't have any.
Reason.
I don't need any.
Oh, so basically, someone who believes in God, they can just simply say, I don't have to provide any reason whatsoever. I know it's true, and it's
You're
true.
making a positive claim. Fucking hell, is that so difficult to understand?
Yeah, it's the second guy that sort of falls a little bit into this trap, right? He's trying to burden you with a position. And again, this it's kind of a critique against the other people, but I understand, and I'm by no means an expert, but I've learnt a little bit over the time of speaking to people and going to speakers' corner and so on, and I've taken time to spot these sort of things. So I'm by no means claiming I'm an expert or that I don't miss things myself or whatever. But if you're just popping in there, then this sort of thing happens, and this is a tactic, right? It's not an intellectually honest position, because the other person, you should take the most charitable thing and hold on, is that your position? So you're undecided. Great, okay. Why are you undecided? Boom. Okay, I understand that now. I'm going to give you my position, and here's why I believe. But if you try and settle somebody like this, eventually if you keep saying it, as we've heard, repeating the thing over and over again, you might get the person to change their mind or say something slightly different. Then you jump on that, and off you go down that rabbit hole. That wasn't the person's original position. It's just that you can't really refute them. So all you do is keep asking the same question, hoping that they'll say something different that you can jump on. And that's not an intellectually honest way.
And people make the same mistake that I always make, because I think I need to be polite. And it doesn't work, because as Rob just said, they're not honest. And they're not trying to be nice, and they're not trying to have an intellectual discussion or dialogue with you. They're trying to get you. They're trying to catch you out. And there's no way that by being polite, you're going to score. There is going to be a point when you need to be assertive, when you need to get away from this passive stance and say, okay, I've now listened to your questions. I've answered all your questions. I've been very patient. I've been very forthcoming. Now let's turn it around. Now it's your turn. I'm asking the questions now. Why is it you? And then you go, because there's a limit to what you can do. And this is the mistake that I always make. I stay far too long on being polite and walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
See, but for you to have a possibility that the universe can come from absolute nothingness, you don't have to give any reason. That's what you're saying.
That's correct.
No, that's not what he's saying.
Why?
I don't have to give reasons for why something could be possible.
So could it be false? Could your reasons be? Could your statement? Could your possibility? Out of these two possibilities, could your possibility be false?
Yes.
Yeah?
No, I don't have one. I'm saying I don't know which one it is.
No, I've given you. There's only two possibilities.
Yes.
There's only two. Either one could be false, right? I mean, that's blatantly, trivially obvious, right? Unless you're claiming that you have absolute certainty that it's one way or the other, in which case you'd need Mount Everest of evidence for that claim. But that's the trivial point, right? Because immediately my mind was, well, so can your point. Both can be, but that's a trivial point. And then, so what's my position? It's still X, right? That's the thing. And actually, like you say, it stops at this point. You're just repeating yourself. You're going around in circles here. Right, you demonstrate to me that it's either impossible for it to be any other way, or that if it's a high probability, why you think that's the case.
Yeah. And Dave has done it again in the walking library, and the researcher has found the video. Congratulations.
Which one is this?
I'm just screaming. Can somebody tell the carrot just to gently slap Mansur a bit so that he comes to his senses and stops this line? And
what was that video that Dave put up?
No, this is between Thinking Clearly was looking, and this was quite difficult to find, and in the end, Dave made it. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Absolute nothingness, or it comes from something. If you said the universe could come from absolute nothingness, is this proposition true or false? Could it be false? If it's false, then the other proposition is true. Right.
No, it doesn't work like that.
If it's false, then we don't need to even talk about it. But if it's true, what are your reasons to make it true?
What?
Yeah, it's just the same thing over and over, right? It's saddling him with a burden that that isn't his position, and you're not defending your position. You've got the much stronger claim, and you're not defending it.
But there's people who are not used to this.
Yeah.
So you have no reason to believe it to be true, but all reason to believe it to be false.
Rob, another thing, something.
That's not true either.
Something just popped into my mind, which I need to. Just because I'm sitting now here in my armchair, very calm, collected, and removed from the action, I can spot these things. Does not mean that when I'm in the thick of things, when I'm standing right there being confronted by the person, that I'm going to have the same level of calmness to go and spot these things. Because then adrenaline and emotions play a huge role in how you react to that. So just because I'm seeing it here now does not mean I'm seeing it there. Okay, just to make this very clear, I acknowledge this. I know that I'm aware of it.
Yeah, we've got more time now. You're not in a dialogue
Yeah.
situation where you
Yeah.
can miss things. But the more we do these sort of videos, the more we do get in dialogue, hopefully the better you become, especially if you can notice your own errors, or you notice where somebody said something which you could have responded to differently. That's, the way one learns.
You're missing the point every single time.
Okay, but even this, right, the claim here, we're at 1341. Let me just go back just a few moments here. Listen to this.
So you have no reason to believe it to be true, but all reason to believe it to be false.
No,
That's not his position. At no point did he say that, right? So that's a straw man of his position. Instead of asking him, which again, he's done multiple times anyway, so it's becoming tedious at this stage, but now he's just outright straw manning him.
you're missing the point every single time.
You have no reason to believe it to be true, your proposition,
Correct.
but you have reasons to believe it to be false.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I have no reasons one way or the other.
Why not?
I just don't. I have no evidence. Science hasn't progressed to the point where it can interrogate before the...
Is science the right tool for that question?
Yes, it's only one we have.
No, it's not. Science cannot deal with things which are not empirical. Beyond the creation of the universe...
Hang on a moment. Are you saying that what is beyond the universe is not empirical? And
That's
if
what
so,
he's
how do you
saying.
know that? How do you know that?
Exactly.
And what other tool are we going to use to find out about it? Are we going to use a 1400-year-old book that barely talks about it in any coherent way? No, we're not going to do that either. And we're not going to use your logical deductions and, arguments from ignorance, which is what you did originally. No, we're not going to take that either. So until you provide something that is more substantial than science, yes, we are going to take that.
Universe, there is no empiricity. There is no empirical, there is no matter to deal with. There is nothing.
How do you mean science can't deal? Are you saying science can only deal with matter?
Can science deal with supernatural?
Yes.
What kind of scientific method are you describing? Scientific method is to deal with the natural world. The natural world, not the supernatural world.
There's been experiments done based on...
What is the supernatural world? Well, that's the other question. And if you're going to say it's non-material or non-atom based or whatever, well, okay, well, how do you know that? But even if I grant that, right, that's fine. But then that doesn't help you in any way. But as long as once the universe got started, now we can use science to bring up the possibilities of how that got started. But you're making a lot of claims about the supernatural that you don't actually know anything about, and the Quran barely even covers in any coherent way. So, and even if it does do it in a coherent way, you've got no way to demonstrate that it's true. So it's like you're just taking it on faith. Otherwise, you could just as well believe in the Greek gods on top of Mount Olympus, and they're just in another dimension watching us at the moment.
Supernatural. I can do an experiment. It was one done for patients in ITU, and you can get 2 ITU wards. Church prays for one, but not the other, and you see how they do. And these people every Sunday say prayers, and they hope that the people get better. And then you can look to see whether one ward got better than the other. The hypothesis there is that prayer works, and what prayer is speaking to God, and He changes the order of the universe in order to heal these people. That is a scientific experiment. That is science dealing with the supernatural.
Yep, it's called intercessory prayer. It's been tested and found to be no better than chance, and in some cases actually worse than chance, right? This was done with the Templeton Foundation, as Stops knows as well. And this is a scientific inquiry into a supernatural claim. The claim is, hey, I speak to God, and God comes into this universe and heals me in some demonstrable way that would not be possible through human technology. There we go. Right? Then I'm more likely to believe that. And especially if it's consistent with only one group of particular people praying to one God. And it would be even more spectacular if I or somebody else prayed that I knew personally, or that had happened to me. Now I'm going to be shifted a long way along the line towards believing that particular God can at least do miracles, right? That's one thing, that this God can do something miracle. Now the further burden is, well, okay, how do I know the other things this God has done? Because if I'm praying, hey, God, do this, and He does this, or she or it does this, that's one thing. And now I can go, okay, there's a God that exists that does this reliably, answers prayers and certain things happen. But how do I know which one? And how do I know what this God said? Because if he's so good at being able to do miracles, then surely he can download, as you've said, stops, all of his intentions or his wills or his commands or whatever the case is to me personally as he can to every other human being. That's what I would expect if he wants us to know about it in such a way that isn't tainted by other fallible human beings.
But if somebody wants to talk about this, then this is a very good example.
That is dealing with the supernatural phenomena, but it's not actually observing the supernatural, is it?
No, it's observing the supernatural interacting
Absolutely.
in the natural. I mean, this is straightforward. I mean, like, really?
Right.
Well,
So I'm.
it's
not observing supernatural.
Observing their effects.
Effect.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the effect.
Well, why aren't you talking
well,
about
this
effect?
is
That's exactly what
you
you're
need to
talking
do.
about. That's what your Quran talks about. So how can you dismiss this? This is like intellectually dishonest now. You suddenly want to reject the effects, but your entire Quran is based on effects that God did. How can you reject this? You're contradictory here.
We were talking about the causes of our universe, and you talk about the effects.
So let me continue.
The effects of the supernatural, which science can do in this universe. I mean, follow along here. This isn't difficult. I think you do. Either you just have no clue what he's saying, or you do understand what he's saying, and you're being disingenuous now.
So we do the experiment, and we find that the ITU, where the patients who were prayed for, did much, much better. You can then say, oh, well, there's clearly something in this. You would have to repeat the experiment because it's so unlikely. But anyway, let's say you repeated it 1,000 times, and every single time you found that the ITU patients who were prayed for did much, much better. Then the next thing that you need to do is try and propose a mechanism, and then you would start to look for, are there particles like gravitons? Is God doing something and then interfering with the bacteria that's inside someone's lung? Whatever. You would then, that's what you would...
So all the experiments that have been done, are they postulating a God particle? Are they postulating God in there?
Why not? I postulate that.
No, not you.
If prayer is
The
working,
experiments that have been done.
Huh?
The experiments that have been done.
The Templeton Foundation specifically has a huge grant that is trying to deal with making religion and science compatible. And especially if they could demonstrate with some scientific evidence or experiments that in fact the supernatural has interfered in this world and it can be reliably demonstrated, their job will be done. That would be amazing. So people are doing this. There's a lot of money being spent on this. The same thing with your certain claims about the FITRA with what's his name from Oxford. He was sponsored by the Templeton Foundation. So they're trying to do this all over the show. So the fact that you're playing, like you don't know these things, either you don't know it, or if you do, you're just pretending not to remember it.
Right.
Are they postulating God in there?
The original experiment.
Okay. Why does he keep saying this? Like, is he really not understanding this, or is this simply dishonest? The guy said the effects. At no point did he say that you can demonstrate God directly. He's talking about the effects, and you keep saying, God indirectly.
And what suggests that God is acting on patients in ITU.
Was that in a peer-reviewed journal?
Yeah.
And then did it get criticized by others? How can you bring God in?
Yeah. Why would it?
Because every time you want to publish something in a scientific journal and you say, remember that particular author and the paper that got really reprimanded by calling, but this is the hand of God, and they had to retract with an apology by publishing it. Yeah. So the dogmatic science doesn't allow this kind of supernatural explanation.
Well, who's are you strawmanning him? Who's this dogmatic science? Maybe there are some quite dogmatic scientists. I'm not one of them. Stops isn't, I don't think. Everybody I've heard isn't, but there are some that are. That's fine. Then you could say, okay, well, in that case, science can never prove or disprove even the effects of God. But that's not my position. That's not Stopps's, not this guy's position. So deal with our position here. And if you're going to claim that, no, it can't do it, well, what's your evidence of that? If that's the case, then any claim that's made in the Quran that's supposedly supernatural, we can immediately dismiss, because testimonial evidence we know is much more unreliable than some sort of empirical tests.
And in the Quran they're called signs.
Yeah, they're not even miracles, but maybe they're going to claim that's what signs can also be miracles. Whatever it is, how do we demonstrate this? It can't be just eyewitness testimony, especially for supernatural. You're setting a very low bar, and actually, why don't you accept the supernatural eyewitness testimony of the risen Christ? Because that's the same sort of thing. If you're going to be consistent, you've got to hold on to it. But now they will appeal to something else. Suddenly, right, next time this happens, I'm going to do that. Over 500 people were claimed to have seen the risen Christ. That was a supernatural event. Why don't you believe that? And now they're going to have to give me something else. Now they'll have to deny eyewitness testimony in that case.
in scientific peer-reviewed journals.
It does.
Yeah?
No, it does.
That's interesting to know.
Look up that experiment.
Yeah?
Look up the experiment. It's in a journal, scientific journal. Obviously, it was negative. It didn't show any difference.
Yeah. But if it's positive, they would say it's a positive
If it's positive, what they would say is scientists are notoriously skeptical, and if it was positive, they'd say we need to repeat this. And if that was positive, they'd say we need to repeat this. Okay. If that was positive, they'd say we need to repeat
Sure.
this.
And then basically it will be experiments where it will no end because there will be...
Yeah, that's not the case, right? I mean, well, maybe it is for some people, it wouldn't be for others, right? You've got to be a bit careful there because now he's basically admitting that no, science will never accept it. So you've got to be a bit careful with that view.
Not eventually succumb to the conclusion that there is God because that is not part of an explanation in the natural scientific method.
Well, I don't agree, but okay.
And I don't either, neither does Stops, neither does many other people as well. Some people do, I don't. Right, so deal with the person you're
That's
speaking
the
to.
dominant dogmatic science. You may be a believer,
Only because there's no evidence for God in science. Yeah. If there was evidence for God
But when you say,
in science,
how can science bring evidence for God itself?
Like, how many times does this guy repeat the same thing? It's a repetition here, and it's about the effect. Like this, a child can understand this. And again, I think it's a good example. If either Mansur has an inability to listen or to comprehend, or he's being disingenuous, whatever it is, you can repeat it a couple of times like you would to a child. At that point, then you just have to, take a position that either he's unable to comprehend, he's not listening, or he understands it entirely, he's being entirely disingenuous. But at that point, nothing further. Now, all you can appeal is to the safekeeping of the audience, those people who are paying attention, that you've answered the question sufficiently, and he's not understanding it by virtue of what he's actually saying.
By the mechanism I just suggested.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, the scientists would have already done that experiments already.
Well, it was negative, so they don't need to do more. You don't need to do another experiment to show that it's negative.
Yeah. So does it prove God doesn't exist?
No, it's evidence against it.
It's not evidence against it. It just tells you that God, these people really, have the prayer answered or not. Why would God necessarily answer the prayer in the way people ask? Yeah?
Because supposedly that's what God's attributes are, same as what happened in your book. Muhammad got revelations. How's that any different? God is supposed to, in whichever view of God, answer prayers or do things and interact with humans in some way. So why is this a big mystery to you?
Yeah, so it doesn't prove God's some kind of interactions within it, because people have a perception that, every prayer that I make, God has to listen to it. God is under obligation to answer the prayer. Yeah. Okay, so anyway,
That is exactly what the job description is. That's what it said in the advert. Needs to respond to prayers. Yeah.
You and I know very well the whole concept of something kind of out of nothingness is simply not believable. But yet, you in the name of science, you give this possibility, the reason being, then you don't have to postulate God at the end of the equation. Can you not record him, please? Yeah? Thank you.
A bit late now. Too late, buddy.
Why does everybody go to speaker's corner and say, I don't want to record
the reason why scientists, people who are...
We're just getting a repetition now, right? So I think what are the takeaways here? I think, I don't know if we want to carry on here. I think we're getting the same thing. What we've certainly learned with Mansur is when he doesn't have a strong position or he can't, critique or expose the other guy, it'll either come down to some sort of sophistry or grandstanding, which in the previous video was partly the other guy's fault, or it'll be this sort of thing of repeating it over and over. Because the gullible audience that's watching, and you can see the recorded live chat here from when this took place, I'm learning about evolution from an exam, how's your fasting, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we can just scroll up to see if there's anything. Brother Mansur is such a calm person. Okay, fine, but he's just repeating himself, right? It's like, one of the things I noticed with the text chat, right? Nobody ever brings anything substantial. They'll tell about his demeanor, they'll tell how he's schooled or he did this, that, and the other thing. But actually, you'll never hear anything about, hey, he made this good argument and this is why I think it's good. You just never hear that from these people. He's mixing science with something else, right? So it's just a repetition here of the claim over and over with the view that if he says it enough times and maybe tweaks it slightly, it'll make the other guy sound like he's got a weak argument, or it sounds like he's a bit silly, or whatever the case is, when nothing could be further from the truth. And so I do hope I get a chance at some point to speak to him online, because I won't allow any of that. And because I'm fine-tuned to some of these tactics, I'll hold his feet to the fire, and I'll point out when he's repeating himself and he's going around in a circle. So, Stops, do you want to carry on, or I think...
No, you're right. I mean, this is going to carry on exactly along these lines. There are going to be slight variations, but I think it's going to be the same thing all the time.
It's about almost...
Grace, are you happy with this? Is this what you expected? Could we have done anything else, or if anybody else wants to comment on this, is there anything that we should be doing that we didn't do, or that just can you give us a little bit of feedback? Because I'm not sure if this is really what people expect, if this is really what you want if we go and look at these videos.
Yeah, so let us know, if it's been of interest to you, either educational, entertainment, whatever it might be for you. For me, it's a case of listening to the tactics and looking at the arguments to see, do they have weak points? Are they saying anything substantial? And how might I respond to that? And I think we've demonstrated, certainly with Mansur here, that there's a few tactics that are involved. It would be the same with anybody else, right? It doesn't matter who it is. Maybe I should do the one with hijab and skydive full, although that's a little bit unfair. What we should do maybe is hijab with the other guy, where he promised him the £5 and didn't do it. I think maybe that one.
Oh, I did a video on that, yeah.
Yeah, if I can find that
one.
I'm
that's
sure.
I can find Chop, because I did a video on this.
Oh, did you? Okay. Maybe we can do that for next time, because that one was a classic, and we'll show you how hijab just went down in a bit of meltdown. So like when your brain doesn't think, and I'm sure we've all had that, right, at some point. But with this particular atheist, he asked hijab like these questions that were genuine, honest, good questions that just tied his brain up entirely, and he went into he got flummoxed. And when you flummoxed, then you don't, well, not that I think hijab is particularly rational or substantial anyway, but when you're flummoxed, then it makes it even worse, right? The brain just is not functioning correctly. The neurons aren't firing in the proper sequence, and that was an amazing video where this kind of thing happened, and he ended up wanting to give or said he'd give the guy £10 and ended up losing and not giving the guy the £10. But in the heat of the moment, if you're not sort of paying attention, then it might seem like it didn't happen, but it's so demonstrably obvious.
This is the hijab video.
There we go. Okay, good.
And if you go to Speaker's Corner, analyze, then you will see what I did with this.
Okay, good. So that's the one there. Stops, can you post that in the back chat, in the private chat for me, because I can't pick it up here.
The Speaker's Corner one?
Yeah. That one you just posted now with the hijab. Is that the one from Dawa Tube or whatever it is? I think it is. The front
no,
picture's
this is
got
the original hijab one.
Where he speaks to the other atheist.
Well, he speaks to the atheist. This is the way that hijab saw it. And if you want to see my reaction to it, I'll have to find
Well,
it.
give me just pop that original, the one you just posted there. I can't pick it up unless I go to YouTube, because you can't actually copy it from here. But okay, I think hopefully that's been useful. We are looking, as I say, to start doing a review of
this is
Hamza's Den 4-hour one in 3 or 4 different parts. And Stops and I'll have to find time to do that one. We'll see how we get on. Might only be next week. Who knows? We'll see.
And this is my video. What I did with it. Okay, here's my video in the private one. Okay, I don't want to go back now and do the same thing again.
Okay, so that's your one, and then the original, if you post that in the private chat as well, then we'll take it.
Having trouble connecting. Please check your internet.
Oh, it says video not available. That video is not available.
I just
the one that you posted. Unless that last 2 letters are part of it. I left that out because it said okay there. Maybe I need to put that in.
The okay is there. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. My mistake. Okay, I'll take a look at that one.
Okay, so this is the
Did you link
original.
to the original? No.
This is the original link to. This is my video. What I did with the original. So the OK one is my reaction.
Can you post in the private chat the original video? Because you've posted in the main chat, but I can't copy it.
Okay, now I
from
need to go back. I need to open everything.
All right, but
again.
anyway, we
What
can
are you
do this
doing
after
to
the
me?
show. We just
Okay, I got it.
chatting
I got
away.
it. I got it. I got it. Because now I've
Put it
done it
into
once.
Discord.
It's quicker to do it a second time, so I can put this in the. Okay, this is the original hijab video.
Well, if you guys want to pop onto Discord, let me give you the link for that. We could pop on there for a little while. That gives people a chance to.
Come on, no, it's enough.
Okay, well, stops won't. I might just have a quick look there. Thank you very much. But if you want to join Discord, because some of the guys hang out in Discord, Stops and I pop in there once in a while. And so if that's of interest to you, then definitely go and do that. That's a place where a lot of people can talk. It's not recorded. And there we go. Dave has actually put it in. Yeah, there we go. So that's the same one. I'll grab that. And we can have a look at that at some point. Alrighty. So on that note.
But
Yeah,
now
he
I
was-
still
he was
haven't got
very
any
big now.
feedback what people are saying about this. Why can't people say, okay, look, this is what we want, this is not what we want, what you should be doing is
Well,
focusing
hopefully
more on
people
this.
are turning up, so hopefully it's
Are they
been
all ecstatic?
entertaining or in educational or enjoying. But good, let us know either in the comments or anything like that, especially on this channel. I pick up the comments, Stop Spamming picks up the comments on Gin and Tonic. So if there's a particular video that you want us to review, drop us a comment. Hopefully we'll pick that up. We can have a look at the video. Ideally, we want to do one with Muslim versus atheist. We're not particularly interested in Muslim versus Christian. So, or it doesn't have to be an atheist, but a non-believer. I mean,
I
you
don't
know,
have one
agnostic,
for
whatever the
Friday
case.
yet.
Yeah,
So
we'll
if you
have
have
a
a
look and
short
see.
one that we can do on Friday, please let us know.
Alrighty, great. And on that note, thank you as always to my co-host Stop Spamming. Thank you to all of you that
Welcome.
popped in. There's the Gin and Tonic server that's on screen now. I've popped it into the chat, hopefully. Did it go in? No, it's not allowing me. So just grab that there, and that's where you can always hang out when some of us are there. On that note, thank you very much, and we will see you again for a future review episode. Good night.
Good night. Elbow cuff. Most epic. Oh, you're so funny.